Okay, it's 6:30. I'm going to call the special council meeting for Wednesday, November 29th to order. First, I'd like to acknowledge that we are meeting on the traditional territories of the Lekwungen speaking peoples, specifically the Kitsepsum and the Songhees nations, whose vigilant stewardship of these lands continue to this day. May I have a mover and seconder to adopt today's agenda? Okay. Olson and Jordison, please. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Unanimous. Motion carries. Go to public participation. I'm going to open the floor for public participation. Seeing none. Anyone online? Okay, perfect. We'll move on to new business. And I'm going to turn it over to 2024 Service Review Overview. My favorite time of the year. It's not Christmas. It's Service Review. Anyways, turn over to you, Jen. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Kobayashi. That is the spirit. I do have a very brief presentation. Just bear with us one moment. And so you're correct. This is 2024 Service Review. This process not only is an opportunity to hear from each of the city's service delivery teams, but this process absolutely informs our financial plan.
Jen, do you want to have us ask questions on each slide or at the end? Your preference?
Either or. Please just indicate if you have questions at any time.
Perfect.
A couple minutes here just to provide a brief overview, and then we'll get into the first service area. So we will be meeting over a series of meetings between now and mid-December. You will hear from each of the city's service delivery teams, including an overview of the operating budgets. The documentation before you is prepared consistently with prior year service reviews, including the operating budgets. This documentation is prepared with the expectation of maintaining existing services unless we have explicitly highlighted otherwise. The intention is at the conclusion of the review, we will then return to continue 2024 budget deliberations in early January. So tonight, we have 5 service areas scheduled, all of our public works related service areas, carrying into tomorrow evening with a wrap up of public works, as well as our communications, events, arts, and culture. Since this has been published, we do know that we need to reschedule both communications and events, arts, and culture. And so we are proposing, if time permits, perhaps we can get through all of the public works related service areas tonight. We won't require tomorrow's meeting, and then we'll reconvene on Monday afternoon, if time permits. So you will be hearing from 19 distinct service areas, service delivery teams. Our CAO will provide an introduction to each team and an overview. The documentation includes detail on staff compositions, as well as performance measures or key statistics. You will then hear from the teams themselves. We'll talk about some of the successes of the past year, some of the challenges we experienced in the past year. You will also hear from the teams about the status of current priorities and what we are continuing and proposing will be our priorities as we move into 2024. You will then hear from me with respect to a status update on each of the operating budgets associated with these areas. These budgets have been published with updated third quarter projections. And then we will turn it back over to council to consider the existing service that is being delivered in each of these areas. So similar with last year's service review, we are looking to council for guidance in a number of areas. Each of these areas, we highlight your expectations of us. We are looking for your confirmation of those expectations, or if you wish to see any changes. We have proposed what our top 3 priorities will be headed into 2024. We are also looking to council to review those priorities. Do you agree? Do you wish to propose any changes? And ultimately, we are looking to council to resolve whether or not we maintain existing service delivery, whether we increase that service delivery or we decrease in each of our service areas. You will have an opportunity to provide that direction at the conclusion of each service area. And then, of course, at the end of the review in mid-December, we can revisit any areas. These budgets are prepared with the expectation, as I said, that we are maintaining existing service. We continue operations independent of the annual budget process. We previously anticipated that the city would require a 5.5% tax increase to support city service delivery into 2024. The draft budgets before you include both the previously approved operating budget for 2024, and they also include the draft budgets. Now, our draft 2024 tax increase is hovering below the 5.5%. We're at about a 4.9% tax increase. So we are looking at about a 3.25% increase to support city service delivery. And then the draft budget does propose an additional 1.65% to be transferred to city reserves. The purpose of service review is not a review of our capital budgets. It is not a review of our reserve activity, nor is it a review of special initiative budgets. Those will come before council starting in January. But I did want to preface this process with where the city is currently sitting. And so we are sitting a little under a 5% increase, and you will see the details as we get into each of our city service areas.
Quick question, Jen. If the sub-regional funding for the RCMP facility goes through, what's going to happen with that reserve that we have for the RCMP facility? We're going to put in sustainable infrastructure then? Is that what the plan is?
That's a great question. And yes, I will be proposing that that transfer go towards the city's sustainable infrastructure reserve.
Thank you very much.
And so if there are no further questions, we will get started with our first service area.
Councillor Jensen.
Thank you, Worship. I know it's preliminary or early days because we just spoke about this, but when we move to the sub, or if we move forward with the sub area utility, for lack of a better reference, for the RCMP building, do we have any idea what that tax lift might be? Because in my mind, I mean, it's hard to parse out. That's our building. It's disingenuous to think that we're pawning that off on a lift that's a CRD lift. I think, quite frankly, you know, in my mind, that should be included in our overall tax lift. Philosophically speaking, maybe you can speak to that. Thank you.
Through the mayor, fantastic question. So yes, you are correct. We have asked the CRD to finance that build. Excuse me. There will still be a tax implication to Colwood's ratepayers for the cost of the detachment expansion. Specifically, rather than that increase being the municipal line item on our tax notice, it will be the CRD line. Or we could consider highlighting it as policing related taxation. Some municipalities do that. In terms of what that tax increase is, we'll return with those implications, but all things remaining equal, it ultimately should impact our ratepayers consistently, whether or not we were to finance it directly or the CRD, because we are not proposing changes to the cost apportionment between the member municipalities. But you're absolutely correct. It is still a tax increase. It's just not considered a municipal tax increase. Thank you.
Thanks. Councillor Day.
Thank you. Jen, you mentioned that we're going to be going over our top 3 priorities. And I haven't looked ahead to the budget agendas because life is busy, but I'm not sure where that is and whether or not that matches our current strategic plan.
Through the mayor. So the priorities within each respective service area are towards the back of the profile right before the operating budgets. These priorities absolutely, where they relate to the current strategic plan. We can make mention of that. The status update on the existing priorities absolutely relate to the previous strategic plan. And then in terms of the new priorities, teams can articulate how they fit in or not.
Yeah, because I think the purpose of a strategic plan is to lift up those items that are within our planning scope. And therefore, I would really like to, and I realize things don't happen overnight, but I want to work towards ensuring that what we lift up in our budget is what we lift up in our strategic plan. My next question is just in regards to that RCMP reserve lift. And it's kind of difficult because when we are proposing our financial plan, we don't really have the whole picture for the CRD plan, but we do need to bear in mind the financial environment that we're in. I mean, I think we do that in terms of looking at inflation. And, certainly in the last few years, we've looked at it a lot because of COVID and the crunch that was easily acknowledged, but perhaps not easily quantified. So I'd like to sort of at least keep in mind somehow the environment that we're bringing this lift into. So, when we're looking at the CRD lift, many of those service areas, because of the size of our municipality, are outside our control. But I think we need to at least put it in our documentations what we do know in terms of just understanding, if the CRD lifts are relatively stable, and we're proposing, a lift that's consistent with what we've been anticipating, or if we're putting that into an environment where, I think everyone recognizes that escalation and inflation in costs for every household is an issue. And I just want to make sure we frame our discussion without just ignoring it. Even if it's out of our control, we need to acknowledge it.
Thank you. Go ahead, Jen.
And so with that, we will start with the roads service area.
Thank you, Jen, and good evening, Council. So as described, you get me for the first bit where we'll roll through Council's expectations in each of the 19 service areas. The page after that is typically some metrics relative to this service area. We won't necessarily go over that, but please stop us and ask questions if you have so of those metrics. Then I will turn it to the roads team to chat about, from their perspective, successes and or challenges and opportunities. And at that point, we encourage council individually to add to these lists. From your perspective, is there a success in the roads area that we should add to this list, or a challenge or opportunity that we should add to this list? After that, the roads team will reflect on the current service review, 2023 review, the priorities that were gifted to the team by council a year ago, and where we've landed on those. And then, as described, we'll lift up potentially, based on council's advice last year, that we should only have three priorities for 24. As Jen described, these are lifted up for your consideration. In each of the 19 areas, you get to decide the priorities. And so if you'd like to strike all these and add new ones, we're absolutely welcoming that approach. We've lifted these based on our belief sets relative to what's working, what isn't working, and our interpretation of where you'd like the service area to go. After the 24 priorities, then it's back to Jen, who will walk through the budget for the area. And then we'll circle back at the end and seek council's an endorsement of the roads area in general, including the draft, including the 2024 priorities. And for the roads area, for example, we're recommending a maintained level of service. And so we'll seek council's endorsement of that. We'll roll through the other 18 areas, not all tonight. And at the end, as Jenn has indicated, encourage council to give yourself the freedom to come back to any of these later. If something comes up and we want to make some edits, I think that we should have the freedom to do so. So with that, I'm going to start with roads expectations. And so this is our interpretation. Much of this is lifted from last year's document of what we think council's expectations are in the area of roads. The first, the roadways, cycling lanes, and sidewalks be maintained, including snow and ice, to improve safety, accessibility, and functionality for all residents. Snow and ice policies and road maintenance are in place to optimize and encourage alternate modes of transportation. And currently, the portion of the roadway utilized by bicycles receives an equal level of service to that which is used by vehicles. The pothole issues receive prompt and effective response. That prudent repair and management of roads foster a sense of pride for residents, as well as providing safe emergency vehicle access and maximize the useful life of our roadway infrastructure. That snow and ice work be preventative and proactive, and that paving and asphalt maintenance move from reactive to proactive. These are the expectations as we have them. Does council have any change you'd like to see or addition? I will then turn it to Tanner and team to chat through successes and or challenges and opportunities.
Just gonna interrupt here because did you say you're jumping over the performance metrics, correct?
Right. I won't specifically speak to them, but if there's a question relative to the metrics.
I have a couple questions. If there was a significant number of a decrease in the number of potholes repaired in 2023, 73 down from traditionally about 200 or so. Incredible. So what's the magic formula here? What happened here this year? It's just out of interest.
Thank you for the question. When we looked at that, we chalked it up to two things. Proper reporting using Tempest to nail down what we were actually repairing. And secondly, our repavement, that's not program, sorry. Hopefully there was some areas in the past few years that really drove those numbers up. Ocean Boulevard, for instance, where there was potholes that crews were fixing almost on a daily basis. So some of the paving that was taking place down on that street in particular took care of a lot of those potholes that the crews were going back and forth to fix on a daily basis, which I think was driving those numbers up. So those two factors were what we were seeing this year and what we thought put those numbers down.
Anecdotally, I'll tell you right now, because I try to be more proactive and just take a look at our roads and everything. I can tell you one thing way better. I mean, you guys have been way more proactive. I could tell you because I know where the trouble areas are. And you guys been on. I'm going to give you compliments. It's been incredible. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
The second thing that I have is when the ARs come in right now, do we track them to like roads or sewer, or do we do that? Because that would be an interesting metric to have on here, because it shows that we are being more proactive, I guess, if we're getting less of them, right? I think.
Thank you, Worship. We can look at a way to integrate. We do have reporting on our website on a monthly basis of our action requests by area, and we can look at a way to incorporate that into this document by area.
Wow, that would be fun. I think that would be a good telltale sign of. And the last question I have here is, I'm personally really interested in our safety of our employees, and there's no metrics anywhere. I mean, we don't get a annual safety thing that shows us, what our frequency rates are, severity rates, and I guess, you know, I guess it could be put in all of them, but I don't think like we require that granular, like an overall once a year, just, you know, because and specifically public works, because they're the guys that do all the physical work. I just want to make sure we're taking care of our employees. So I think that's an important metric to have, or metrics to have.
Thank you, Worship. Our occupational health and safety function is housed within our HR function. And so we will ensure that we add to or make robust the safety metrics in that one area such that they reflect what you're seeking.
Super, thank you very much. That's all I have. Councilor Gay?
Thank you. You picked up on the same stat that I had picked up on, and just in terms of the potholes. And I wondered, just because I drive the area frequently, I've been noticing a lot of pavement concerns on Wishart Road. And I know that it's scheduled for repaving this next cycle. So I wondered if maybe that's why they weren't getting repaired. I don't know if it's just, I'm one of probably many lazy people who go, oh yeah, I got to report that. We haven't done it, but I would think that the crews would notice the same potholes I do, because they're fairly significant, that they certainly make a lot of noise when I accidentally hit one of them. So just wondering, are you holding back at all where repaving is going to be done in the next cycle, or is it just a matter of we need to identify them better?
Through the chair, thank you for the question. No, we would never hold back. If a pothole is reported, we would take care of that first to mitigate the hazard. So if it's not seen and not reported, then sometimes we won't get to it. Sometimes they are filtered in through our own crews and our own reporting, but we do still rely on public reports as well. So no, we wouldn't hold back, and we did have issues that came out of the pavement assessment on the lower portion of Wishart, which we did repave today. And we do know that farther along Wishart, we do need to have some trouble areas as well that we are looking at taking care of next year. So
Yeah, there's some definitely everywhere where we have older pavement meeting newer pavement, there is a tendency to have those issues. So I will encourage myself and others to report more often. And I just wanted to ask, because boulevards are kind of lumped in with the roads group, but I think you want to talk about boulevards separately, is that correct? Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, please continue.
thank you. Getting into successes, we continued our crack sealing this year. Problem areas that we tackled this year were Lagoon Bridge and Veterans Memorial Parkway. We continued with the Colwood line marking program. So key areas that we'll hit each year are the school zones. So we'll hit crosswalks, stop bars, any other markings, say X's or slows in school zones in particular each year. And we also took care of the Colwood City Hall this year and the Colwood Fire Hall. They asked for help prior to their open house in June, so we refreshed the entire parking lot for them as well. Also, other areas that come in for line marking requests through Tempest, and we do set aside certain areas for the city that we do try to hit, whether it's stop bars and yellow tails as well. Also, no posts and other safety features as well. Paving remediation that we hit this year, major paving was done on Wishart Road, Fulton Road, Ocean Boulevard, Stornoway Drive, and Machosen Road. And crosswalk safety, we worked with engineering on a few projects trying to create 2 intersections in particular to make them safer. Notably, Public Works cleaned up the corner at Sunridge Valley and Jacqueline Road and added a crosswalk there. There was a lot of concern because of the school or preschool, I think, that's connected on the uphill side of Jacqueline in particular, where there's a lot of foot traffic and children crossing that intersection. So we worked with engineering to create a new crosswalk in that area. and also the project that we did at Castlewood and Brookside with the new wheelchair letdowns and the crosswalks and stop signs that were added to the three-way stop there. And lastly, continuing with our progression into EV equipment and electric vehicles. We did introduce an electric paint sprayer this year to our painting program. And then with help with our public works crew and mechanic, actually outfitted the painting trailer with solar panels on the roof. And that uses to actually power the batteries that power the equipment. So that was a pretty neat little feature that we added to the program this year. Any questions on any of those before we move on? Challenges and opportunities, keeping pace with maintenance demands as asset inventory expands. So that's our balance between proactive and reactive work. Going into the next point, responding to resident concerns is a priority for us. So requested work is a lot of the time put ahead of scheduled work. So we struggle to find that balance sometimes. Performing the scope of work with a lean interdisciplinary crew. Same thing, if we have scheduled work and we have reactive work, we'll put that ahead, but sometimes if we split a crew up to do certain jobs, then it takes away from our scheduled work. So those are all sort of grouped into one. We also struggled with reliant contracted services this year when we did need help, in particular traffic control. Everyone's very busy. It's very difficult for us to hire, almost looking at 2 weeks out if we need help from outside traffic control, which was a struggle. And we did have issues with interest in hiring auxiliary staff this year. So that was a struggle for us. And just adapting to impacts of climate change. Roads in particular is a service area that we need to really get creative with how we bring down emissions and how we do certain tasks. So that's a learning process for us and something that we're working on daily. Looking at new ways to do that. So. 2023 priorities.
Councilor Day.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. I'll let you finish. My question is about the priorities, so I got a little ahead there. Sorry.
So for 2023, we were working to formalize an operational sidewalk policy and implement an annual inspection program. Listed that as complete. We have put in place the operational sidewalk policy now. That's within our own work group. And I would say we're about 80% done on the annual inspection program, which should be 100% before year's end. Also creating a roads and sidewalks operational winter maintenance policy, which integrates safe winter pathways to school. When we looked at that as a service area this year, when we did create them, we ended up separating the two areas and created two separate policies for winter maintenance, one for sidewalks solely, and then one for roads individually as well. So now that those are in place, we'll be looking to see what our thinking was and how that plays out once we get into, now that we're putting them into practice. So we should be able to tweak those next year and really see how we can utilize them, and if we've sort of set aside priorities that we can hit. And then elevating data presentation relative to the ongoing paving program, utilizing metrics to illustrate lifestyle costing for road maintenance and or replacement. I left that as an ongoing, we did as a group. Still say we have some reporting to do for the pavement assessments. Since the implementation of the pavement assessment, I think we can get better at reporting and what is being completed. And near the end of the year, we were coming up with ideas with GIS. And next year, once we hopefully implement our asset management system, that should further our reporting and make it easier to visually show and report out what we have completed and what's not. We're looking to actually be able to put what comes out of the pavement assessment and the road levels, good, fair, poor, and that will be shown right on the GIS map. So that's hopefully what we will be looking to do next year. So we're still working on that one. And for priorities this year, our last citywide pavement assessment was in 2018. So we are looking to do a refresh of that in 2024. We'll be looking to investigate and integrate electric tools into the road service area. Two in particular that we are looking to potentially look at a plate compactor, which we would use for paving small gravel jobs, and also an electric chop saw, which we use in the road service area, but would also be able to integrate into the sewer utility area as well. And that would make things for that group a little safer working inside the set. There would be no emissions with the tools that they're using when they're a few meters below ground in the shoring set. So that's something we're looking to do next year as well. And then formalize an operational sign inspection and maintenance program. Roads and public works sort of took signs on from parks last year. So we've been refining that program and growing it. And, you know, there is legislation in Ontario with the reflectivity of signs and how they're needed to be maintained. And we sort of see that might be progressing over into BC and maybe the next few years. So we're trying to look to get ahead of that and put that into an actual program and maintenance level as well. So yeah, those are what we listed as priorities, but happy to take any questions or hear any comment.
Councilor Day.
Thanks. So when you're looking at your priorities, kind of this year was sidewalk policy and winter condition policies, and then data presentations. And for next year, we're looking at pavement, electrification of tools, and looking at our signs. But none of our priorities are pointing to what we sort of looked at. I think last year was the first year that we were looking at increasing our frequency of cycle lane cleaning or clearing. And also we've got that pilot project underway with the curb plunking in the school zone. So I really felt that possibly one of our priorities should relate to cycling and evaluating how we're doing for the cycle network, because with the amount of development that happens, it's very difficult for cyclists at some of our key intersections, particularly because there's a lot of debris that ends up in the cycle lane, and that's very dangerous for cyclists. VMP and Soup Road, for example, that corner is highly used by all kinds of mobility devices, and it can be dangerous because the vehicles are congested and high rate of speed, maybe proceeding through an intersection late or something.
Mr. Jordison.
I just had some question in regards to just from your 2023 the roads and sidewalk operational winter maintenance policy, and my apologies, I haven't looked to see what that is, but I was just wondering where bus stops and that sort of thing come into play with that. And I know it's difficult just to get to the roads and that, but just getting people to be able to take other modes of transportation. I just wonder what the priority is around that.
Thank you. So that's slated in the policy. Usually when we talk about these winter maintenance policies for the roads and whatnot, it's more geared towards the equipment and crews that are used, and how many, say we needed to do a call out, how many people would need to be called in to take care of that. when it comes to bus stops, usually what will happen is once the crews come in the morning, or if we call them in, they will disperse as the daily tasks will be set aside and bus stops will start right away. There will be crews that go out to say clean City Hall or certain areas, city-owned buildings and bus stops. So they fit in, but it's just something that we do as a task straight away. If we can get to it, and that depends on how many people will make it into as well. But for that, we'll just utilize ground crews, snow blowers, shovels, and just hand salting. So
Okay.
it's worked in. It doesn't really translate in here, but it is a priority that they do right away. With typically, if it's whoever's not in a mechanical vehicle, will be dispersed out and taking care of that.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Grove?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The question I have is really around carbon footprint reduction, how this might be measured, if it is at all, and of course, the climate impacts overall. And keeping in mind for myself, the notion that carbon credits are somehow worth something. There is a carbon tax out there. There are carbon credits. I don't know if that means we have the capacity to receive funds somehow. And for that, and I'd also like to mention the health and safety impacts of working without the cloud of exhaust around those machines and the vibration levels and so on. Might have some tie in there, and I would just love to see that if it's possible. It's not a huge thing, I suppose, but I think it's important. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll proceed on then. Thank you very much for the input.
Your worship, if I may.
Yes, please.
The tradition or the direction from council last year was that we had 3 priorities in each area. We've heard from Councillor Day a recommended priority, and maybe I'll take a stab at it, that we create a cycling network maintenance policy as a possible priority. That would be a 4th. And so we would rely on council to collectively determine whether the creation of a cycling network maintenance policy displaces one of the existing top 3, and or it's added to the list, but it's just below the current Elevate data presentation. So it would be listed as a priority, but not a top 3. And so we're seeking council's collective direction on that.
Okay, that's true. Councillor Day?
Thanks. I just thought I'd try to motivate towards that. Not in the near past, but I have sat on the Cycling Advisory Committee a number of times, and often the condition of the cycle lane is what came up. It's what causes people to be in serious accidents. It is often not just here, but any municipality that's often a neglected area. And because our modal hierarchy puts cycling at or near the top, I just thought that we should have it as a goal. I am just a little unsure as to whether this goal of elevating the data presentation on the paving program with metrics is higher or lower, because I'm not quite I understand that's a priority for the crew to be able to demonstrate what you're doing and why. But when I think about priorities, and probably when taxpayers think about priorities, they think about what do you want fixed first. So my reasoning is potential danger to people.
Okay, I hear you loud and clear. So I know that we've increased the frequency of the cleaning of the bike lane. So is there any data like to back up, Councillor Day? I'm just trying to figure this out. Is it still the big problem right now, or is this anecdotal? I don't know. I mean, I like to base something on some kind of data of some sort. I just started riding the bikes again, so I can't tell you anecdotally if it's better or worse, but I haven't seen as many complaints this year, I guess, is how I measure it. So I if you can answer that one if you have something that I don't know.
So all I can give you is that my information is anecdotal, comes from working with the cycling advisory committee from my family. We had two extremely active cycling members of my family who traveled multiple kilometers 5 days a week, and other cyclists who come to visit. So I only have anecdotal, and because cycling accidents and injuries are not reported through ICBC, I don't know of a way to get a different measurement. But we do know that we have had staff who've been seriously injured on bicycles in Colwood due to road conditions. We've had people that I know of seriously injured due to road conditions. And so I can't give you a way to find the data. If anybody knows, I'm interested, but because they don't have licenses or license plates, it's unlikely that there's going to be a hard source of data. There is, however, a cycle map that is an accumulation of reported data from users who would identify crash locations if that was what you're looking for.
Okay. Any comments from Public Works on this?
Yes, through the chair. I would say hard data. We have less complaints. I mean, there's a group of cyclists out there that regularly call in and complain about whether the cycle lanes are clean. With the increased sweeping of the cycle lanes, that is diminished. We are uplifting cycle lanes to be cleared for snow and ice in our evaluation. And that's also gearing the crews to understand that the cycle lane is part of it. Snow and ice is first off is emergency services, so the roads get done. The second priority is the cycle lanes. We don't have cycle lanes everywhere, but we try and make those better as we go through. So simply put, sake of argument, if we get 4 people coming in to plow snow in the evening, one of those will be dedicated to basically cycle lanes or sidewalks. And that's how we're going to shift. Hopefully that'll work for us into the new year. But that's part of the policy that we put forward.
Okay, thank you. Okay, sorry, Councillor Jordison.
I just wanted to say that wouldn't fire or police have data on accidents that happen in cycle lanes or with cyclists that because I'm like, we get all that information. I don't know, just to see how much of an issue it is. It's just a suggestion.
Your worship, if I may.
Please, Mr. Earl.
Administration can certainly gather cycling injury or accident metrics and endeavor to add them to this report. I guess from a process perspective this evening, absent an elected official making a motion to replace one of the top 3 in blue priorities with this priority, we will list it. It just won't be a top 3.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Jensen.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. The cycling community is extremely well organized, and if there are major issues, we hear about it quickly, and that's not making its way to me. Yeah, even the committee that I chair, there are cyclists there, and I haven't had any complaints. So I'm more interested in seeing these priorities as is, and I'd hate to add to the workload for our staff. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So you've made a motion though, I believe, Councillor Day, correct? I have. Okay. Okay, if you want to proceed. Oh, yeah, if you go ahead, I'll turn you on, sorry.
It's all right. So I'll make a motion that we add I've lost my words at this moment, but that staff consider add a priority for cycle lane clearing to the 2024 priorities. And it doesn't need to be the top three. That's fine. Let's just keep our eye on it.
Do I have a seconder so we can discuss? Okay. Thanks very much, Council Ward. Sorry, Council Ward seconds it. And I shall open it for discussion. Councilor Jensen.
Sorry, that was dramatically different than our discussion a few minutes ago, which was about collecting data and writing reports, et cetera, and we've heard that clearing of snow and debris from bike lanes happens organically as it is, and is indeed a priority. So I'm not opposed to the cleaning of bike lanes, but I am going to be opposed to this motion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, I'll call the question. Those in favor, please. Okay, those opposed? Okay, so just Councilor, you, Councilor Day. Oh. Yeah. Okay, that's exactly what it does. Okay, thank you. Hey, I guess we move on to, I think we did formal motions on the level of service too, correct?
That is correct. So I will next jump to the operating budget overview, and then we will look to seek council's endorsement of the service level. That's correct.
Thank you.
So just briefly, I'll walk you through. So these schedules are prepared consistently with prior year. Where there is direct funding outside of taxation associated with a service area, we will highlight that within the operating budget. In the area of roads, we don't have other funding sources outside of taxation. We then separate existing service operating budgets from new service operating budgets. And we then highlight the taxation required, as well as provide a metric of the taxation required per resident. So we utilize BC Stats estimates for population figures. And then reading left to right across the chart, we include both the 2023 approved budget. We've included the updated projected actual spend for 2023. And this again will come forward as the third quarter financial update. The comparative that's before you is that between what was previously approved for 2024 and then what the updated draft 2024 budget shows. To add a little context, the city's operating budget is approximately $28 million. The operating budget to support roads is 4% of that. When we look at the changes in the roads operating budget, it's virtually consistent with what was previously approved, with the exception that the team has reviewed the utility budgets, specifically the hydro budgets, to support an increased number of streetlights, and that reflects the increase in the draft budget before you. General roads maintenance includes a number of activities: crack sealing, line painting, road cleanup, and bike lane maintenance. Pleased to answer any questions you may have.
Councilor Day.
Thanks. My question is on the streetlight maintenance. I know that we're doing conversion to LEDs for a number of them. I understand that that should result in reduced maintenance costs over time. So I'm just curious why we're still seeing the budget go up. Are we changing more over, or are we adding more streetlights?
Through your worship, fantastic question. So the streetlight conversion in 2023 was deferred. So we have not done the number of conversions that we have anticipated inside of the last 12, 18 months. So the impact inside of, I would suggest, certainly the next 2-year operating budget is that of catching up with an increased number of lights. And then we will absolutely be monitoring these budgets. There is an expectation that as we continue with the LED conversion project, which is continuing in 2024, that we will not require the same level of funding.
I see. I don't recall that coming to council, but did it come to council, or was that for staffing reasons that it was deferred?
We have provided updates on that program by way of the quarterly updates at minimum. But yes, at the second quarter, we did comment that the LED conversion was deferred into 2024, just given competing priorities. Thank you.
Thank you.
I do recall that. This old memory isn't that good anymore. It's an interesting, yeah, I don't have to, I got my question answered in actual fact, because that was more meaningful when you told me what percentage of the overall operating budget, 4%. So that sort of runs what I've seen true with other municipalities. So that's pretty good. Because that other number, that $52.55. So what? It meant absolutely nothing to me, but I like how you report it the other way. It's interesting. Not unless you can benchmark that number against other people. I mean, what does that mean? That's how I always look at it. What are you trying to tell me? Is that good or bad?
I appreciate that feedback. Certainly the taxation per resident, even just reading across the document, provides some context as our population grows.
Yeah.
How is that affecting the taxation per resident?
That's perfect.
It's some
I
context.
understand your goal now. Thank you very much. Councillor Grove, sorry. Jump in.
Excuse me. Thank you. I was just curious, you heard the 2025 draft budget, 2026 draft budget, the increases, especially to 2026, seems to be modest. If, for instance, we were to know the future cost of replacing local road asphalt surfaces, I'm thinking of my road. I've been on it for 21 years and it's starting to get a little shabby around the edges. When those things start to roll in, are we confident that these, what looks to me like a modest increase projection is good, or is that done for a different reason? I might be wrong. I'm just curious if that's $100. What do I see here? Taxation required 1.23. So anyway.
Through your worship, great question. The city's paving program budget is included within our capital program, independent of this, and that is where we would be funding such items.
Thank you. I'm just curious then. It still looks like a modest projection increase. I was just curious how, if we're in inflationary times, that alone seems to take care of more of that. Does it not matter? I'm just curious of the thinking behind that projection.
No, certainly it absolutely matters. So we have factored in some inflationary factors. What factor we utilize absolutely depends on the type of spend within the budget. With Colwood annually, we are faced with the reconciliation of the financial implications of growth in general in this municipality. And so we will be highlighting throughout these service areas where we have explicitly allocated additional funding in future years to support that. I don't disagree, the 2026 estimate, it may be understated.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. So I'm not completely losing it.
The population's also growing faster than the total operating expenses too. So that's the math in it, right?
Is that the answer I was looking for?
Absolutely.
So explain that again, sorry, Chris, quick.
The population growth is faster than the actual overall total operating expenses. So if you look at how it's calculated, right, the numerator or the denominator.
Sure, but this is the total taxation required, right?
Yeah, well, I thought you were talking about the cost
per person. No, I'm talking about the taxation, total taxation required from 25 to 26 is only increased 30,000. Anyway.
Okay. Councillor Jensen.
Thank you, Worship. I'll move the recommendation that we maintain current levels.
Okay. Thank you. And could I get a seconder on that, please? Okay. Councillor Jordison. Discussion. Yes. Councillor Day.
Thanks. It was just Councillor Grove's question got me thinking. When we're looking at this budget and we're looking at these numbers, and you explained that the paving program is under the capital budget, I just thought we should clarify that these numbers that we're looking at here is really our staff and equipment costs, not our capital expenditure costs. So this is how much it costs for our people who do the work and the tools that they use, not what it costs to actually do the jobs. That's in the other half of the budget, if I've understood that correctly.
Through your worship, I appreciate the opportunity to clarify. So these are the operating budgets. So any expenditure that we consider capital in nature, that we consider, having a useful life beyond the operating year, will absolutely be within the city's capital program. Also within the capital program, we talk about the debt servicing implications, even though those are operating in nature. And we highlight and review the transfers to reserves. Yes, the bulk of the city's operating budgets are absolutely labor, contracted services, utilities, and that sort of thing. The roads budget in particular, the staffing composition in each service area provides some context. And in this instance, it's approximately 50% of the operating budget is that of the personnel that support this service delivery.
And in this case, it is anticipated that the same number of staff doing basically the same priorities as the previous year is going to cost us another 5.3% for next year.
Correct.
Okay, I'm gonna call the question. Any opposed to maintaining the current service level? Opposed? Seeing none, unanimous, motion passes. We shall maintain the current service level for roads. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you, your
Next.
worship. May I move to storm?
Right on, thank you.
Council expectations in storm sewers, that the storm systems be maintained to ensure safety and functionality for residents and maximize the useful life of the infrastructure. That critical open drainage infrastructure be kept clear, inspected once per year with brush cutting only for function, limited aesthetic consideration. Critical hotspots are monitored frequently during heavy rains. That staff provide prompt assistance to residents experiencing stormwater issues, and that staff provide clarity to the public regarding maintenance practices and requirements relating to open systems. Does council have any changes for expectations?
Seeing none, proceed.
I will now turn to the team. If there's no questions on the on the statistics page, to chat about successes and challenges and
I
opportunities.
just have one question because this one is just getting, the drainage ponds maintained 10 and then 1 this year. Can you explain that to me, please?
For the question. 2022 was the first year that program really took off. So the first year in 2022 was spent really doing a lot of cleanup of invasives, finding the outlets and inlets of the ponds, and sort of starting a baseline. This year, while we did inspect them, we found that the clearing that had been done the previous year was enough to hold us off this year. And the bulk of this budget was put towards the new pond that we gained off Carindale Road. So we had to build a new access road and do some fencing and some other work down there. So we prioritized that pond to get it accessible and to be able to maintain that one while we inspected the others and thought that it could wait another year before we
So
did
is that
that work in
explanation
2022
for the
again.
next one also? That's a great explanation,
Yeah.
Tanner. Is that the same thing with the next one? We went crazy in 2022, the 6,100 meters to, and then we dropped to 852 meters this year.
Yeah, so that one is a special case. So again, in 2022, that program was found to be a lot of the work that they had done. The contractor was not met. Did not meet MMCD standards. So while engineering was taking care of that program, a lot of the work was not accepted. So early on in 2023, we were meeting with the contractor, Public Works and Engineering, to see how they could rectify and fulfill their obligations of the contract. So contractor not wanting to lose faith in the city and to sort of bring their service level up to meet the actual standards, they went back and redid a lot of the work that wasn't accepted, which we didn't pay for. So the contractor went back, fulfilled their portion of the contract, which is why the actual linear meters are so small comparatively to the year before. It's actually much longer, but that is the portion that was done new. The majority was redone. So it doesn't necessarily reflect what it looks like.
I was
So
just looking at
next
the
year-
note. I thought so. That's what.
Yeah, okay,
Perfect.
thank you.
Okay, thanks
So-
very much, Chana. That's a great explanation. Thank you. Oh, Council Grove.
Thank you. How many hotspots do we have? And is that growing? And what causes a spot to turn into a hotspot?
Thank you. for
There's
the
one
question.
there's one on the end of my street, which you've had to work on the last few years, quite to good result, I think, so far. I'm really kind of curious because a lot of water comes crashing through there sometimes
Hotspots.
on Maywell Place there.
Yeah, hotspots are those areas, like you said, that we know, say particular catch basins or ditch lines that are prone to seeing a lot of water or prone to flooding that we know, if they're not looked at correctly or if they're not maintained, that they can cause
Yeah.
overland flooding. So that's something that we'll look at when there is a significant rain or while it's raining, and also it's utilized to check those hotspots on the winter maintenance shift early in the morning as well. If the crews aren't brining or if there's no sort of snow and ice to take care of, they'll take care of that in winter maintenance as well. So it's probably, I could get you the actual number. I won't say it now because I don't have the exact one, but I can get it for you.
Okay, cool. No, it's good. Thank you.
Thank you. So you mentioned the program that you've been focusing on, but and in the past, council has had presentations on potential solutions and been much more involved in what the options are. And I would say we're much farther removed from that at this time. And I'm just wondering, are you planning to kind of bring us up to speed on what's going on with those storm drainage issues, or where are we at with that?
Thank you. That's a good question. We've implemented in 2022 was the implementation for the CTV and the storm sewers. That's the first time it's been done in, as far as I can remember, and I've been here for a while. As of right now, we've only identified some emergency things that had to be fixed. There's a capital budget for that. We have not come with any big replacement projects because we haven't identified any areas at this point in time from the CTV program. When those come up, I'm sure that we could bring those things through as capital projects, then will be determined from council at that time.
Yeah, so I was, and I can't now all of a sudden think of the name of the road. But the next road that you come to from here going down Ackland, that's it. I knew it wasn't Allendale, but it's another A name. At the end of Ackland, you can definitely see big piles of boulders and rubble. And I just looked at that the other day and thought, I have no idea what's going on in there or what the plan is. So I'm sure if I'm curious, other members of the community are curious, and I think it would be worthwhile for us to understand.
Councillor Jensen?
Oh, sorry, along the same lines, I had the same thought. Is it fair to say that with the acquisition of the settling pond property up the hill, are we in a much better position to avoid a flooding circumstance in the area that Councillor Day mentions for this year and forever, or I'll leave that with you. Thank you.
That's a very good question. And The answer is no to the pond being acquisitions being a maintenance issue or to alleviate that. Our implementation of a pumping program in securing that over time, that's what's going to save that thing in the short term. Long term, it'll be a full-blown storm sewer design that will take the drainage away. Taking over the pond was a good idea in other aspects, but not for what the question you just put forward. Does that make sense to you?
Perhaps I can add some further information. So the city's continuing to work to get to a preliminary design of a stormwater system for that whole area, and we continue to advance that. We're advancing that simultaneously with a desire to position sports fields in the area. We think that we can achieve two community goals. One, a stormwater solution for that area, and two, create additional sports fields that for the bulk of the time can be a recreational amenity, and for the 1 in 200 storm will be something else. We're hopeful in the 2024 calendar year that we get that to a point where council will get directly involved in understanding how that will be phased and how it will be funded.
That's awesome. Thank you, Robert. So sports field / water feature. I like it.
Okay, sorry, ladies and gentlemen, I'm gonna keep us focused on what we're here tonight for. I mean, it's all great information, but I don't want to be here forever. Okay, well, please, let's proceed.
Thank you. Successes. Flush and camera program identified key deficiencies, which were repaired with Colwood staff. Achieved annual catch basin cleaning program objective, which ties into the next point was, sorry, those are separate. Implemented the annual manhole and culvert inspection program, which identified 2 cross connections. Since this was drafted, that number is now actually 3. So that was a good success for us, that manhole program inspection in particular. We completed a drainage project at 691 Allendale, which is behind the new C-SPAN building, which will mitigate groundwater from surfacing on Allendale Road. We installed multiple new catch basins in existing problem areas. Areas of note were 505 Winthrop and Machosen Road at Ben Homer Drive. And we assisted the fire hall with a long-standing drainage issue in the parking lot. Challenges and opportunities listed there is the CCTV program. While the contractor took responsibility for this, we saw it as a challenge and a success. Engineering did a great job holding them to account and then working together with Public Works to get that program finished, and so looking for next year to get back on track. Continuous changes in the landscape in the C1 Allendale area, which we were just talking about, impacting stormwater flow and direction.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm just, when I was reading the reports, the 691 Allendale issue left me wondering, since when new developments are in, they're not supposed to increase the stormwater runoff to the receiving environments around them. So I'm just wondering why that particular location, which should have been a new location, would have been a problem that we had to fix.
Thank you for the question. Just to make it quick, and because it really is not part of the service area, it was a drainage issue for the drain water that comes off of Haida into that site. So it's basically the city water was pouring into the site. They had a rock fill area that actually breached out onto Allendale Road, which didn't pan out. All we had to do is hard surface the catchment area behind the building, and it was in our right of way. And it didn't materialize until after the development was already done. So.
Thank
Sorry, yes, providing reactive service to infrastructure, managing the components of an aging storm system. Through the flush and camera program, staff are working to ensure deficiencies are repaired and repairs are planned. Addressing climate change related storm patterns, preparing system to handle intense rainfall volume over short time periods, and adapting to working to mitigate the impacts of climate change.
Please proceed.
Yeah, 2023 priorities. First one was to create a stormwater maintenance operational policy, which we completed in-house. Begin repairs to closed stormwater system, rectifying deficiencies that identified during the flush and camera program, which were completed, and improve data reporting for storm maintenance and articulate maintenance programs. Staff was documenting work that was performed in the field, spreadsheets and documentation of all inspections and findings. So we created that as a success and a priority, which we completed this year as well. Looking ahead to next year, we're hoping to continue to refine the inspection programs and consequently provide up-to-date information to assist GIS with ground truthing documented infrastructure location. As we dug into these programs, what we were finding is a lot of the tile maps and GIS and what was actually as-builts were not matching up. So as we continue to refine and get everything inspected, that will in turn build and create our GIS to make that more accurate. CCTV known trouble spots to assist engineering for future drainage capital projects, in particular Fulton Road and Cecil Blog and Souk Road. So those will be top priorities to get those inspected and cameraed for engineering so that they assist with planning to take care of their capital projects. And sort of building on small ditch clearing, we're looking to increase brush clearing at large culvert ends and smaller settlement areas. An example is Pelican and Machosen. These are large sort of areas that see a lot of water that take a lot more work than just looking sort of at what we would consider a driveway culvert or something. So it takes quite a bit more staff time, in potentially contracted services to clear some of those areas. So, but important to keep clear as well. So those are what we listed as our priorities.
Okay, thank you. Anyone want to add a priority or change the priorities? See none, we shall proceed over to you, Jen.
So carrying along to the operating budget for this area, this area's operating budget is proposed to be maintained at what was previously approved. That does support the 1.75 FTEs. Now, that being said, you've heard from the team tonight about reactive infrastructure maintenance works. Later in the evening with the sewer utility budget, we will highlight where we have increased resourcing to support asset management. And as we continue that between 2024 and then into full resourcing of a 1.0 FTE in 2025, I anticipate that may impact this operating budget here, as it is both maintenance for the storm sewer system and the sewer utility system. Excuse me. Beyond that, the 2023 projected actuals are consistent with what was previously communicated at the second quarter, and pleased to answer any questions you may have.
Seeing none, I will look for a motion for service level to maintain. Okay. And second, Councillor Jensen, please. Discussion. Seeing none, any opposed to the motion? Seeing none, approved. So we shall maintain. Next.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll move to Parks, Trails and Recreation. Council expectations in this area, a high standard of landscaping and safety be upheld at parks, trails, and playgrounds. That beautification of green spaces through plantings be a priority for staff. That continuous improvements for accessibility be implemented to increase all residents' enjoyment of parks, including connectivity between trails and other infrastructure and attractions. That public stewardship partnerships and engagement be encouraged throughout the city. That removal of invasive species be prioritized in natural areas. That urban forests are seen as an asset and managed accordingly. That native plant species are used where possible, and that staff identify and sign the percentage of parks and trails that are accessible. Does council have any changes, additions, or subtractions?
Councillor Day.
Thank you. I was just thinking about climate change and the challenges that we have to identify what we're doing to mitigate that. And one of the things that Colwood struggles with is keeping our trees and tree canopy, which we know contributes to cooler summer environments, carbon sequestration, etc. So I thought that one of our goals should be to mention, because we do say that urban forests are seen as an asset and managed accordingly, is that Colwood parks contribute positively to the tree canopy and the carbon sequestration for Colwood. I'll make that as a motion.
Okay, do I have a seconder? Seconder?
I think where this would go, just to motivate your thinking on it, is that we would then at least measure what we have and know whether we're gaining or losing from our parks.
Yeah, I guess why I'm just debating in my own head is I remember the climate action plan and how we addressed it in there in the action plan. So I'm just wondering if we're double dipping here. I can't quite recall, but I know I read it and it was in that climate action plan. So wasn't too sure. Yeah, didn't.
Yeah, I just thought it should be in our goals for our expectations. But
That's the only reason I'm not gonna second, because I believe it is covered. I thought it was really well done, actually, so. Does anyone recall this? Okay, that's what I thought. I couldn't get a second or so. We shall move on then, please.
Thank you. Does council have questions on the metrics page prior to board walking us through successes and challenges?
Let's proceed.
Good evening. So the parks team had a pretty successful summer and growing season this year. I think the parks team felt really good about this past year. We were able to implement a 4-day workday, a 4-day work week that had where 6 team members started a pilot program from April to September, working for 10-hour days. We were able to, this was very well received by all those who participated. It worked well with our 7-day operation, and the team is excited to be able to have this as a program moving forward. We did see an increase in efficiency, and there was no decrease whatsoever. It was a great program.
How did you measure that, Gord? That efficiency? How, like, make that statement? You must have saw something, right?
Yeah, I mean, we saw, and I mean, we could put together something that kind of shows that metric wise, but we saw teams being able to do more in times where it's cooler weather. later in the day, earlier in the morning. We saw teams being able to cover other teams as well. And it just, you know, it's all the same amount of hours.
Yeah.
But for the teams that were working that 10-hour day, it seemed like they had more time to do things, and it kind of showed. So I think when you're happier and feeling good about your day, and you got a three-day weekend, and you know, you're working 4 days, it just, you know, it felt like, and it contributed to, you know, a great year for us, and people feeling good about how much we were able to get done.
That's great. Win-win, right? So.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks very much.
Oh, Councillor Jensen, sorry. I'm a big fan of the compressed work week, and I do think it has lots of net benefits, and I think there is lots of data to support such an initiative. It's been well studied, but I do know the extended tour can change things like statutory time off and stuff like that. So are you saying there was zero net increases in costs to the community whatsoever on
Zero.
that side as well?
Yeah, it was a challenge. I mean, statutory holidays, definitely we had to work around that, but we were able to do it. We would also only run this program from April to September. So this would be like a growing season.
Great.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, it sounds great. Like I wasn't being facetious when I asked that question. It's just when someone makes a bold statement like that, you go, okay,
They
back
should
it
be
up
able to
then.
back it up.
You know, look at our safety record. It's better. Look at this, look at that, right? So
Yeah.
that's why you know, happiness is a big thing too. So I'm not taking anything away.
Thank you for that. Increased stewardship with our activities with the Green Team, Friends of Havenwood, successful partnerships with Royal Bay Secondary Environmental Science class, a class that has done a couple of events with the Green Team over behind the school along the bank of Murray's Pond Park, as well as worked several days with the Friends of Havenwood in Havenwood Park. Really cool program, and students out there doing a lot of good work. So, and able to, when we're doing stewardship work, a lot of it, you know, previously has been, you know, the Green Team and the Friends of pulling tons of invasives. And this year we actually saw some restoration work happening as well. So it's great for those groups to be able to do all that work, but then to be able to do the fun stuff as well. And that's restoring these areas, plantings, trees, and that sort of thing. So an increase in that. Our team took it upon themselves because we are getting bigger lawn areas like meadows. We do foresee sports fields on the horizon to improve our turf maintenance, and did a great job in that this year. As you can see with Meadows Green, it struggled for that first year, didn't look all that great. But with the help of with the Gablecraft team as well, working partnership with them, we were able to really get a hold of that, and lots of education, and including our partners and getting information from our partners as well. And we've definitely made great strides in that. And I think that's good for the future for sure. Electrification of the parks equipment was really successful. We are probably at 60% of all of our parks equipment now: weed whackers, line trimmers, mowers, blowers. And the team has really kind of settled into to these pieces of machinery, and they're working really well for us. We created the integrated pest management policy, which was a great thing for us, as well as the draft pesticide use policy, which will be coming in front of council very soon for adoption. And we worked with Gablecraft down on Royal Bay with the wayfinding strategy. And we're now in next steps of using the data to start making some accessible trail maps for all the new trails and all the existing trails. Before I move on to challenges, anything on? So challenges and opportunities. This year, parks work is really, is one of those jobs where repetitive strain injuries are just, part of the job. There's a lot of those that go around. This year, we saw quite an increase in that, which is, with us using the electric equipment, that's really helped, but we did actually have an increase in those, and there was some lost time for that. It was a lot of shoulder, elbow, wrist, hands, with using line trimmers and that for the large areas that we have day in, day out. So opportunities for us to try and correct that is the electrification, because those machines are much lighter, easier to handle for long periods of time, and being able to switch teams around, being able to get be able to split the days up, especially with the longer days. For the 10-hour days, we can switch the teams up, and they can be switching over to garden work when they're doing lawn work. Drought is another big one for us. The last few years have been really bad as far as the drought, climate change. It's definitely having a huge impact on our urban forest. We've seen our budget, for contracted services, which is our arborist services, go way up just with the amount of tree work we've had to do, fallen trees, hazard mitigation, tree health care, all that sort of thing. And just a really big increase in the amount of garbage and litter. And it's not the amount of garbage and litter mainly that's on the grounds, it's the amount that, is getting, like, our garbage cans are getting used, where we've gone from, one full day of garbage pickup to, almost three full days, to make sure that we're keeping pace with the amount of garbage that's out there. And then litter on top of that, I mean, it's always has always been a problem, but just an increase in that sort of thing.
Councillor Day?
Thanks. Just a couple of questions. I noted with the hand watering for the drought issues, that was a significant thing. And are you looking at better methods then that might be available to avoid that hand watering, like reservoirs or some sort of like mini cistern that would slowly water an area over time rather than having to be there for the whole time that you're watering?
Good question. And through the chair, yeah, we're looking at all sorts of different ways to water. Right now, the like for the trees, the tree bag system seems to be the less expensive way to go. It is labor intensive, but that would mean a lot of that type of like cistern or areas where we would have to dig in holding tanks and that sort of thing for trees. The baskets this year, we used a better system for capturing water and keeping the water in. So even though we did increase our watering of the baskets were did really well this year. They looked really good for a longer time because of the people that supplied the baskets for us use different water capture techniques in there, and it really worked very well for us. Irrigation wise, we're going with using less of the spray heads and more of drip line irrigation, which is much more efficient. But as far as the trees, it is very labor intensive with the water bags, but we're always looking for more efficient, easier ways to keep the trees watered.
Yeah, it just seems like there should be something out there, whether, it's a rain barrel that you fill up once a week and it slowly waters, a certain area by gravity sort of thing over time with a drip system. But who knows? I just wanted to make sure it was something that we had on our radar. The other thing that I noticed was your last point about the trail accessibility wayfinding and signage in Royal Bay. And the next steps being to use the wayfinding signage data for accessible trail maps. And I just wanted to make sure that I hope we're working at having one map for everybody, not here's your accessible map and here's your regular map, because everybody's accessibility levels are different.
That would be the goal, is to have one map.
Okay,
for everybody.
thank you.
Working. Oh, Councillor Olson.
Hi, Gord. Just had a couple of questions and a point. I wish I had the answer to the garbage dumping, because I know there's a couple of areas that there's regular people actually leaving their garbage tied up in the neighborhood. It's quite frustrating. So maybe we should take that on for you guys and find out who's doing it. The question that I had was just for do you feel like we have adequate staffing for managing kind of the parks maintenance, like the actual playgrounds? Because I feel like I talked to a couple parks guys that were maintaining and sort of doing walkthrough and inspecting all the equipment on Fridays and Mondays. Is that something that still happens to all the parks in Colwood
It is.
regularly?
Yep, we do a regular inspection. Yep. We have
Excellent.
software that keeps track of all the inspections.
And that's happening on a regular basis. It's not, there's no issues there. We have adequate staff.
No, I mean, safety wise, it needs to happen on a regular basis. So Fridays and
Yeah.
Mondays, you're correct, is that.
So that is happening. That's
Yes,
good.
Yeah.
My other quick question was just on just out of curiosity, the battery life of all the equipment that you guys are using in the parks. Like I know using a electric leaf blower is challenging, but I'm sure I'm not spending the same kind of money on the equipment as city is. Are you guys finding any struggles with just using the electric equipment like leaf blowers and stuff? Are they adequate?
The technology for the commercial stuff is really good. But in saying that, we are using a lot of batteries. So we make sure that we have enough batteries to get us through the day. And yes, there's going to be challenges. I mean, this is new technology and there's a lot of parks work. But we're looking at, being able to mount batteries in the trailers and being able to charge partway through the day with, you heard it earlier with the painting team, the line painting team. I mean, going electric with them is being able to have the charger on the roof, the solar power. So we're always looking at being able to extend the life of that, but it's actually it's not bad. It's pretty good.
That's good. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We'll proceed on, please.
So prior 2023 priorities was the creation of the urban forest strategy. We're still aiming for December, but we are finding some challenges with the forecasting. So it could be pushed into early next year. But that is on the way. We're very close. We did create the integrated pest management policy. And then we're also an ongoing project for us is to create action plans for the recent parks management plans, as well as a capital plan to help us spend the capital money in all these great initiatives for the parks. 2024 priorities for us is once we have that urban forest management plan is to implement those strategies that we get out of that plan, and that's going to help us increase that canopy, give us targets to help us increase the canopy, and then protect our canopy as well. And, definitely some strategies to protect, maintain, and grow our urban forest. Create and implement an education and awareness program for the new pesticide bylaw. The goal is to have that bylaw ready and in place for the growing season next year with a soft enforcement for a year and being able to educate the public, for a year. There's some great campaigns out there that have really done a great job of educating the public and helping people use alternative pests strategies to help with plant and tree care, and then to create an action plan for the recent parks and Rex master plan management plans, and those are our top 3 for 2024.
Any discussion on the priorities? Counselor Day.
Actually, I was just going to make the motion that the proposed service levels be maintained.
Oh, we'll do the budget first.
Okay.
And then I'll let you do it. Okay, seeing none, we will move on to the budget.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the Parks, Trails and Recreation operating budget, it represents almost 10% of the city's operating budget. You've just heard from our parks manager, who's articulated well a couple of the financial pressures that we're feeling in this area, in particular related to garbage collection, and then within the maintenance itself, that of ensuring that we have sufficient water utility budgets to keep up with the current level of service. So we have adjusted the budgets accordingly. We do anticipate, you may have noticed a couple of notes on a number of the public works related service area budgets. We continue to refine the allocation of time related to the maintenance of our fleet and equipment across public works service areas. And so I'm expecting we may see some of that internal reallocation within these budgets. Overall, we believe we have sufficient funding, but I did want to highlight that. When you look at the taxation increase required for this service area over that of last year, we're seeing a 7.8% increase. Almost half of that, well, actually a little bit more than half of that is related to our requisition to support the West Shore Parks and Recreation Society. That group will be presenting for council later next week during service review. The requisition increase is consistent with what they anticipated last year, but that does have an impact on this operating budget here. We did highlight within the staff position summary as well, the 24 approved budget was to support an increased FTE count of 10. That budget we have adjusted to reflect an internal reallocation of the equivalent of a half an FTE from parks to support our Boulevards service delivery. Please to answer any questions you may have.
Council? Seeing none, I will take your motion then, Councilor Day. Seconder, okay. Councilor Grove. And any opposed to the motion? Seeing none, unanimous. And we shall maintain our proposed service level for parks, trails and recreation. At this point in time, I'd like to take a 4-minute break because I got someone over here bugging me. 4 minutes. 5 minutes. 5 minutes because it takes Councilor Grove that long. And yeah, we'll see you back in 5 minutes. And it's just three things left: Boulevards, sewers, and public works. Thank you. Mr. Earl.
Thank you,
Over to
Your
you
Worship.
again, sir.
In the area of boulevards, council expectations that differential levels of boulevard maintenance occur depending on location. That a manicured appearance be maintained along select Colwood boulevards as defined. That beautification through annual planting be implemented in select locations. Currently, annual plantings are installed along presentation boulevards such as Island Highway and Whale, with the remaining plants dispersed where appropriate. That boulevard amenities foster a sense of pride for residents. The staff manage the city's urban forest and guide future maintenance through the creation of an urban forestry master plan. Boulevard beautification and planting be balanced to be cost effective. Planting medians with safety of staff in mind. Minimization or reduction in manicured boulevards.
Any changes in expectations? I guess I have I don't know if this is the right time, Mr. Earl, but I guess I have a question. I just want to challenge something right now. And it's for many reasons, you know, from a safety point of view and a cost point of view and you know, water savings point of view. I know every year, you know, in the main boulevards, we plant annuals every year. Is there something else that we can plant like that's nice, that is the perennials, you know, so that you don't have to do annuals every year? Is there something better? I don't know if this is the place to put this or talk about it, but
So the Parks Department did a workshop earlier this year with a landscape architect, and we worked to decrease the amount of annuals that we do and increase the amount of native gardens and plantings that we're doing. And so we did that this year, and we're going to continue to do that. You know, our goal would be to really have a good balance, to be able to have some show, and native plantings do give you some show, but I mean they're not as nice as annuals. But we are our goal is to definitely reduce the amount of annuals and increase the amount of drought tolerant native species and that sort of thing. And so we did do that along Whale. I think we cut our annual plantings in half this year.
wow.
Yeah.
It's a good show.
Kept the baskets though.
Yeah, but they're still nice. I must admit, you know, but it's just that I feel bad because, you know, when I'm driving, the guys are out there planting and people just drive like maniacs around them, right? Still, it's just drives me crazy, you know, and I feel bad for our, you know, our staff out there like that. So where are the show streets? It's Whale Road, obviously. Where are the other ones?
Whale, the entrance bed at the McDonald's, and Whale Road, and then here up at Carindale, and then down in Royal Bay. There's a couple of spots down in Royal Bay, and then we've done a few parks now as well. We've included a couple of Herm William, some Colwood Creek. We've done some pocket planting and that sort of thing.
Okay, thanks so much, Gord. Please continue.
Thank you. If council has no sorry, Your Worship, were you seeking council expectation to reduce annuals in boulevards in favor of native species?
I would personally.
Am I
you
hearing
know,
that there's a motion on the floor?
Okay, I'll move it, and there's a seconder. Any discussion on that? Okay, Councillor Day. Well, look at them all flash up here.
Thanks. I'm in support of that motion. And I know that we have always managed our native plantings carefully based on what's easily available to us. But I too have been doing some research on native plants, and we're very closely related with Washington State, and what grows on the Olympic Peninsula also grows here. So there's been a number of workshops that I've been paying attention to. So there are some planting areas that could benefit from some addition of some landscape trees that are native in there, like Suca Michosan, for example. That's a much larger planting area than I had anticipated it would be. And I think it's one area where maybe we have some room for some because trees take a long time to realize from when you plant them. And because the tree canopy is going to be quite important to cooling pedestrians and everybody else.
Thanks so much, Council Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to understand a little bit more about the motivation behind it. For me, if it's an aesthetics thing or a kind of ideological thing, I'm less interested. If it's a cost reduction piece, then I'm more interested. I know the installation of a lot of boulevards and medians and things in Royal Bay, for example, comes with a pretty high maintenance cost, and that's why I think last year we referenced, that council expectation, the last one we added in on minimization or reduction in manicured boulevards. So for me, that's my goal, is what can we do that still looks reasonably attractive, but costs us less money over the long term in terms of maintenance. So I just wanted to get a sense of your
That's
thought
exactly
process
where I'm
behind it.
coming from. Number one, is the cost reduction from maintenance. Safety is another big issue to me right now too. It's just bothers me every time there. It's so and lastly, and it's still, conservation of water. We don't want those $2 billion water projects, do we?
Exactly. No, and that's where I was going to propose, Mr. Mayor, an amendment to the motion to direct staff to do as you said, but with an eye towards cost reduction. I want to make sure that the motivation behind it is clear. It isn't, well, let's replace it with natural planting at twice the cost. I'm not interested in that. So that would be a proposed amendment I would make.
Okay. It's a friendly amendment that I'm okay with. If Councillor Grove is okay with that, there you go. Yeah. Councillor Jensen, please. Oops.
Thank you, Worship. I am gonna pick up the retired Councillor Logan Torch, who loved his boulevards, as you well know, Gord. And I think we're trending in the right direction. Number of annuals are going down anyways. And it sounds to me like we're headed in the direction of this motion, regardless of this motion. And quite frankly, I don't think it's too much to plant in the few locations where we are putting the beautiful flowers. And I do believe it does bring a sense of civic pride and know that you've crossed the border from a neighboring community into ours at certain times of the year, obviously. And so I'm going to oppose that because I think we're already headed in that direction. I do like the annuals, and I'd hate to see us do away with them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Jordison.
Actually, I just had a question. Sorry, it wasn't exactly related to this, but it was just about where in the budget does boulevard trees that were already planted or things planted in the boulevard that are causing the sidewalks to lift or boulevards to whatever, like where does that fit in the budget?
Well, that's where we're getting away from the original motion.
I know, I'm sorry. Okay, never mind. I'll just hold my question.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Day for the second time and final time.
Yeah, absolutely. I just wanted to point out that the native plantings benefit by being planted sometimes with some annuals, because native plantings may take some time to reach a stage that they are attractive. So the annuals kind of make us feel good with color as we go along. And then the native plantings can be very attractive, and they're more drought tolerant, and they're also they better sustain the other animals and bugs and everything else in our ecosystem. They feed the birds longer in the winter, etc.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's just that I had a personal view of the Bouchard, the Bouchard family, and they've shown me some plants that we can actually plant that are like drought resistant, and they actually flower in the spring and they last longer than the annuals. And then they disappear, and then you usually get a shrub after, a beautiful green shrub for the rest of the year, low maintenance. And I started looking at that and was going, holy mackerel. I mean, that's where my head was. And yeah. So at this point in time, I'll call the question, and the motion is that, yeah, can you reread the motion, Amanda, please?
I believe that the motion was to reduce the number of annual plantings and boulevards in favor of native or perennial plantings with an eye towards cost reduction.
Okay, thank you very much. Captures what I want. Call the question. All those in favor of the motion? Okay, and opposed? Just Councillor Jensen opposes.
Thank you, Worship.
Let's proceed.
If there are no questions on the statistics page, I'll ask Gord to move to successes and challenges and opportunities.
And this is in no way meant to move things along even quicker, but most of our successes and challenges were all the same as the Parks Department. As you know, our team is, both our Boulevards and our Parks team are pretty much intertwined. And we saw successes and challenges on both sides that were, pretty similar. So unless there's any questions on successes and challenges or anything that we didn't capture.
Okay, Councillor Jensen.
Thank you, Worship. Quickly, I was going to ask last time, but I didn't, and it came up again, the garbage. As you may or may not know, I'm a big fan of more litter bins. I understand it might be a self-fulfilling prophecy, but at least if it's going in the bin, it's not going somewhere else. So I know that some of our litter bins are very, very small in size. And so, I mean, have we looked at applying some new, new materials to help mitigate some of this? Maybe you have to pick it up less if the bin's bigger. I don't have anything factual to base that on, Your Worship, other than bigger is better. Thank you.
You Texan, you.
We do have new garbage cans that we are replacing, and we have increased the amount of garbage cans that are out there. We got through the same grant that we saw, the wayfinding. We did, I think, 7 new garbage cans, as well as the dog stations, dog bags, and dog garbage cans. Our new garbage cans replace the old green ones that you see down in the along the lagoon, as well as some of the other ones that we got through some of the Royal Bay development. But we have a new standard in Colwood. It's a great garbage can that's covered and keeps the birds and the water out. And we do our own kind of a look with the cedar planks with the whitewashing is what our team does to make them. Then we can brand them through, with Colwood decals and that sort of thing. What we don't have is a replacement for those little green ones. Yeah, so if we were to look at something like that to start replacing those green ones, because there just really isn't anything on the market that is any different than what those are. But in maybe some of the key bus stop areas, we could start replacing those with a bigger can, but that would come with a cost, obviously.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Day.
Thank you. I just wanted to speak to not to be critical, because I realize that it is your same team speaking to 2 subjects, which is kind of the front side of the coin or the back side of the coin. But at the same time, I think for next year, if we could identify the successes and challenges that are related to Boulevards in particular would be really helpful, because they are kind of the same, but they are also kind of different. And I think that's important. So I would just like to see us talk about what's working or not working on Boulevards, so that when we're doing development applications and things that come in here, we have more information with which to speak to those applications.
That's a great point, and I think we can do that.
Great, thank you. Councillor Georgeson.
Sorry to bring it back to garbage cans, but I'm just seeing that there's an increased amount of garbage cans, but there's still an increased amount of garbage and litter. So people obviously aren't using them. And I'm just like, we're not providing garbage cans for people to put their household waste in it. So maybe we should be decreasing the garbage cans. It's just a thought. it's just costing the team more, and they're not able to get to it, and it's just becoming a problem. We're taking on everybody else's waste issues. Just a thought. Oh, but I did have a question about those lifted trees in the boulevards and sidewalks. How does that affect the budget?
Very good question. That specific item where the trees are actually lifting the sidewalks or impacting on hard infrastructure is captured into those budgets. So you'll notice in the roads or the roads one, we had a sidewalk item that's primarily dealing with that heaves from trees. So I think it was about 2 years ago where it was determined that trees were important and they were part of our infrastructure. No, similar to what I would look at as a street light from the roads department. So trees are an infrastructure and we had the guard for them. So we had the pilot project to put in the bricks sidewalks to alleviate the heating. And that was successful for Royal Bay. And in moving forward, the trees are planted now with a soil volume, and Gord can speak more to that. That's more appropriate for the tree to grow in and it doesn't pop the sidewalks, hopefully, but we won't know that for 15 years. And hopefully we'll know.
Councillor Jensen.
Yeah, thank you, worship. I didn't notice anything about Gord the city's adopt a boulevard initiatives with residents and their boulevards in their area. Is there any update in that regard?
It's in the priorities. I can speak to it now if you want, or we can wait to the priorities. Well, I can move on to the priorities.
I just have a quick comment here. It's funny what Councillor Jordison said, because when I was in Tokyo for 6 weeks, it's interesting. You know, downtown Tokyo do what, almost 28 million people in that city, and there's no flipping garbage cans anywhere because you're expected to take it with you. You know, so there's none. It's kind of funny that you said that because you take them away, then so there's two options. People are going to start littering all over the place, or and the problem is that we're not that society. We're not Japanese here, so your cultural difference here. So it would be so hard to the thought process though is hard. Anyway, so I'll let you move on. Last time, Cynthia.
Absolutely. It's just in regards to the sidewalk issues and the trees, that some of the worst places that I've seen issues with the sidewalk has not been necessarily tree roots lifting it. It's been settling and prep and how the ground was prepared where the sidewalk went in, not by us, but it was handed to us by development. So I think it would be beneficial to keep an eye on those issues and maybe just bring that information back to council in the future to look at if you think there's something that we need to do with regard to the size or the shape of our profiles to facilitate having our sidewalks last a long time and be smooth and safe.
Let's go on to priorities, please.
Priorities 2023, the create the urban forest management plan strategy, which will have a lot to do with not only the park trees, but our boulevard trees as well. Create a new boulevard beautification plan in coordination with communications, and this was the workshop that staff did earlier in the year. Which was really successful and gave us a lot of great ideas to start doing our boulevards differently and more efficiently. And then to Councillor Jansen's question on the cul-de-sac island maintenance, adopt a cul-de-sac program. It's still ongoing. We are still working with, we had approximately 15 residents, or 15 groups. I shouldn't say residents because some of the groups are quite large. And through working with the groups, assessing the islands, some feedback we got from council as well we're still working to perfect that. We want to make sure that the program is healthy and successful and set up for success. And one of the things that we're trying to avoid is to have another 15 stewardship groups that the Parks Department needs to coordinate. So there's a lot of intricacies to that. We're still excited about the program. We have the residents that we're working with have been absolutely wonderful. Lots of great ideas. And a lot of the ideas we got from the residents are what we're going to use to make the program work. So it's an ongoing thing that we're hoping that that this year is the year that we get to that off the ground. 2024 priorities is to implement the strategies from the urban forest strategy, continue to use native species for new restored boulevard plantings, install and improve irrigation and soil conditions for all new boulevards, gardens, and lawns. And that's something that we're working with the developers with as well. Irrigation for us is a big thing. Our team is on the belief that, we need to lessen the amount of water that we've used. We understand that, for plants and grass to establish, but once they're established, is to be able to cut down on the water use, and let where we do have grass, let it naturally go brown. In parks, we'd like to see where we have a lot of use in our parks, where you want to keep the grass healthy and green because it helps repair it. And you don't, if you have brown grass and you have a lot of foot traffic, you're going to get wear and tear on the grass. So you're going to get areas with that need to be restored. But on a boulevard, you don't really see that. So this is something that our irrigation team is working on, and that will come to council with some strategies to, have a gold is the new green. And those are our priorities for the 2024.
Councillor Day, please.
Hi, so the fourth goal is to plant 100 new boulevard trees. I think that's great. I just wanted to ask about what your planting size is going to be, because we have had reports years ago now, but that the most successful size for planting at that time was a 6-foot tree, a 4 to 6 foot tree. And I'm seeing a lot of new plantings being quite small. So I'm just wondering, what size we're trying to implement?
Our goal for boulevard trees would be, no less than what we asked developers to do, which is around 6 centimeter calipers. So we're looking at a much larger tree than a 6-foot tree, more like a 8 to 10 foot tree. The smaller trees that we have put in, what comes to mind is the Eddie White Wonders, where we have done some tree replacement on boulevards in front of residents, where we're replacing some trees. Sometimes, where the area of the tree is, it's a bit nicer for the residents, a bit nicer for the area. If we plant something that isn't as big, Eddie's White Wonders, 20 feet at maturity, but a very nice looking tree and something that fits in the neighborhood. So, but those trees tend to come smaller when we put them in. And that's maybe what you have seen out there as far, but our goal is to, like, when we're planting maples and that sort of thing, is to get, the biggest tree that we can handle to put in there.
Right. And there's a number of native species that are probably more popular in Washington, but I think would grow here. I don't know if it's an availability problem, but some of them have some pretty good spin-offs to what they do, both for the soil and for the animals. 9-bark is one that comes to mind. And have you had any success with those, or is there any new ones that you're adding to your list, or is that part of your training?
I think you'll see, coming forward with a lot of the new developments, that you're going to see quite a diverse tree list coming up, because we do see developers coming up with trees that we haven't used before that are successful for boulevard and streetscapes, that are native to the climate zone, but maybe not native to this area, which we're always looking at and expanding our list of trees that can be used. And biodiversity is huge, as well as what you've mentioned with trees that not only fit here, but actually improve the ecosystem for trees as well, being resistant to some of the pests that we have here, some of the diseases we have here that are successful trees. So yes, we are always looking at new species.
Great, thank you.
Okay, does anyone on council want to change the priority list or add any priorities? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on. Finance, please.
Thank you. So when it comes to the Boulevards operating budget, this budget has been updated to reflect the resourcing that actualized in 2023. So the staff position summary gives you a little bit of context there. This budget does support the equivalent of 6 FTEs in the area. And some of the similar cost escalations that we're seeing in the area of parks, we're also realizing that in this area. And so those updates have been incorporated in the budget before you. Please answer any questions you may have.
Councilor Day?
It's just a quick question on that, because parks and boulevards have kind of been one team working on two things, more or less in similar time frame. How confident are we that the costs that are represented this year are related to boulevards, or are we still getting there?
Through the chair, my confidence increases with every year that we endeavor to refine these service areas. As you heard from me earlier in the evening, overall, with respect to all of the public works related areas, which we are endeavoring to get through tonight, I believe that the operating budget is sufficient to support the existing service delivery, which also includes the increase of development, so particularly in this area before us. My expectation is these budgets will be refined with respect to the allocation of the fleet and equipment maintenance budgets to support service delivery. My expectation is that otherwise these budgets are sufficient to support the works that are currently happening by the teams.
Okay, so but you're still not sure if this is really capturing all of the boulevards in the boulevard section.
It is not capturing costs related to fleet and equipment within this section.
Okay.
But I do believe that it is capturing the costs of the team on activities pertaining to boulevards.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Jen. Motion, please. To maintain?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Seconder? Okay, thank you. Did you get Councilor Olson? Second, David, Councilor Grove made the motion. And is there anyone opposed to the motion? Seeing none, motion's approved. We'll move on.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moving to the sewer utility. That the sanitary systems be maintained to ensure safety and functionality for residents while maximizing the useful life of the infrastructure. Currently, maintenance work involves the tasks that are addended in Appendix 2. That residential sewer connections demonstrate excellent customer service and cost recovery. That staff provide prompt assistance to residents experiencing sewer issues. If a resident expresses a concern about a utility issue affecting a dwelling, the city employees respond immediately to assess and assist if needed. And that the technological aspects of the sanitary system are kept current. In the event of a pump failure, systems are in place to ensure the station is still functional.
anyone on council want to amend anything or add anything to the expectations? Okay, Councillor Day.
Thank you. And I'm not really sure where this fits, so bear with me, but our sewer utility, one of the concerns that I had is the sufficiency of the size of our system and how we allocate what we've got. So I'm wondering if there should be something in our goals that addresses that issue in terms of, because we have dual pressures. We have development pressure. All new development is on sewer, and we also have some pressure from existing residences who wish to join the sewer system. And so I'm just seeking to understand, is this the right place where there would be a goal about having sufficient capacity for future residents?
Thank you through to Councillor Day, and just trying to capture it. So that system capacity forecasts being maintained and regularly reported?
Yeah. So I guess I will make that as a motion that we add as a goal that we have sufficient capacity being maintained and reported for the sewage system.
So I just want to get a clarification on, so we're not talking outflow, we're talking sewage capacity in the pipes, right? Correct?
Correct.
Is that what you're saying? Okay.
Yes.
Is there a seconder for that? Okay. Councillor Jordison, discussion? Oh, Councillor Jordison, go ahead.
I don't know where else it would be captured. I'm not sure if this is the right place either, like you were stating, but I think that needs to be a goal. It needs to be on the radar somewhere. Also, along with that, I think, and I could be wrong, but we need to have like a process or a plan on how we're prioritizing neighborhoods and new construction and whatnot, how the process with that. I think there may be a plan already.
Thank you very much.
Your worship, if I may.
Please, Mr. Earl.
As council is aware, we and you have recently adopted and directed us to use for planning purposes our sewer master plan. That plan speaks to system capacities, speaks to the upgrades that are going to be needed in the collection system over time as Colwood grows. And so that document is currently housed and curated by our engineering team. However, our sewer utility team is primarily responsible to ensure that the system has the functional capacity to collect and eventually convey wastewater to the CRD outflow.
Okay, so I know right now we get these reports from CRD for outflow. That's an easy one, right? That we don't have to worry about that. They keep it, but I guess this is what I've always been saying in my own head. Like I wasn't too sure of, we may not have an outflow issue, but we may have a pipe issue, I guess is what I'm saying right now. That's what the one thing that I'm not too sure of. Like,
So
what is that number?
Our sewer master plan does a good job. Sorry, our sanitary master plan does a good job of understanding the current hydraulic capacity of our system to collect and convey wastewater. It also predicts.
That's a plan. I mean, what's the actuals right now?
Sorry?
It's a plan, but what are the actuals?
Every year we receive from the CRD a report of our flows, and we can compare that to the model. And the model is associated with the sewer master plan. And so actual flows get compared to modeled flows, and that gives us confidence or lack thereof in the model, and therefore confidence or lack thereof in what the model is telling us needs to be done over time.
Okay, no, and I understand everything you just said to me, but what's not clear to me is right now you can tell me actually where we are with our outflow. It's, under 50%, for example, right now, or maybe it's 50, I forget what number it is, 57%, right? We know that. And so that's dead clear. But to me, I guess there's no, I can't reconcile in my own head, for example. Where are we with the pipe now? Are we like at 50%, 60%? Or it's different than the outflow number, right? It's different. It's clearly different to me. They're two different numbers we're looking
So
at.
do you mean the CRD's pipe where we exit our system into it? Or do you mean our various pipes?
Our pipes?
So our sewer master plan has all of the data in it that explores and understands the hydraulic capacity of each of our various pipes and our lift stations in their ability to convey the current wastewater and the future predicted wastewater.
I hear you loud and clear. But how can a written plan have, okay, please, John?
Thank you, Your Worship. Our current sanitary sewer master plan envisions that all of our pipes are well within our capacity. I can't speak to this mainline pipe for the Capital Regional District. But when we look at our piping system locally, our pipes are sized mostly for maintenance. An 8-inch pipe flowing at, say, a 2% grade can literally take thousands of homes. And we have pipes that are 300 millimeters, which can take in excess of 10,000 homes. You put that on a 4% grade, that capacity doubles. So you take a pipe from 100 mils to 200 mils, it quadruples in capacity. So our internal systems, the plan shows theoretically based on how many liters of water we use in our homes, which we've had the discussion recently about that usage is going down. It also takes our future population and puts that into the model, and also tells us that that amount and capacity all can flow within those pipes. It's just a typical calculation. The model just collects it all and puts it together. In the old days, we used to have a spreadsheet and write it all out and do the calculation pipe by pipe. The model does all that work for us. I'm confident that our current system within all of our pipes has more than enough capacity. I can't speak to the CRD's piece, but I'm certain that their model tells them, and they've got the flows and they monitor it along the system, so they would manage that, I'm sure, quite efficiently.
Yeah, I know they do.
Yeah.
I do know that they have it. So we have the same thing. So I guess, I think the question that's being asked, because I find this very confusing sometimes when things are brought before council, we sort of agree with the how many units we can stick in there. I'm always wondering, is someone actually, is this okay in the pipe flow? Like that question, because there's nothing that kicks that off for us, so we know. So I'm assuming that you guys know when you say we recommend this, but I don't know.
100%.
Okay.
And I want to mention that as part of our priority list, when we do our engineering piece, our fourth priority currently is to develop a sanitary sewer network expansion plan. So that expansion plan will speak to where we think development will occur and that impact. And will also speak to areas that can be serviced throughout the community and where that's likely to occur. And we'll talk about the matrix that we use to determine what areas might be likely to be serviced sooner or later, which may or may be impacted by development.
Okay. Thanks, John. That clarifies things for me anyway. So just Councillor Grove, sorry. Jumped in when I shouldn't have.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just asking about this motion and what we're voting on here. I thought it was about reporting something in this council expectation. Kind of like an increase of that. But I'm not clear. I was just curious about this motion and what we're.
Sorry, the new motion is to add to council's expectation language around system capacities, collection system, collection and conveyance system capacity.
On a reporting basis, right? Sort of.
And report back to council
each
and the
year.
community, where are we at? Do we have room?
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Councillor Jensen.
Thank you, worship. I've heard loud and clear that it sounds like all these questions will be revealed through the sewer master plan. And I mean, this is a service review and reporting out on that. I see a need for it, but it's not someone with some tools doing something. It's not an actual service. So I think it's going to be well covered in the near future. I'm going to oppose this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Day.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify, I did write a note to myself about this because I have done quite a bit of investigation because I find it just difficult when we are looking at adding somebody to the sewer and I don't have the information that I can refer to that lets me know that yes, that's a good use of our sewer capacity, or no, that's not a good use of our sewer capacity. Because we have a physical limitation at the lift station from the reports regarding the Craig flower. And we also have a limitation at the treatment plant, which we have identified that we would need to acquire additional room in the treatment plant at some point in time in the future. I just want to be able to have that budget and have that described as a goal, which I think would be smart to have a goal that says, here's how much we have used up in our system. Here's how much room we have so that we're making informed choices.
Okay, fair enough. Any other questions, comments? So, Amanda, can you just reread the motion, please? Thank you.
That a goal be added to the council expectations that sufficient sewer capacity be maintained and regularly reported.
Okay, I think that's right. Yep. Is that correct, Councillor Day? Okay, perfect. Call the question. All those in favor of the motion? I'll support too. Okay, so defeated. Everybody else. Councillor Ward, Councillor Jensen, Councillor Jordison, and Councillor Olson, Councillor Grove is have voted against it. Yeah, that's correct. Okay.
Thank you, Your Worship. Does council have questions on the statistics page? Then we will move to successes, challenges, and opportunities.
Sorry, I have a question.
Oh, Councillor D.
For this.
Oops, sorry about that. I hit the shift. There we go.
There. So under performance measures and key statistics, we don't have the new homes connected through development number. And that is something I was hoping we would have or be close to having, or at least have a year-to-date number.
Sorry, that was a little late getting in through the chair. The year to date we have listed at 61.
So is that yellow? The yellow space there? Forgot. Yeah, I noticed that was messy. Okay, thank you. Okay, well, please proceed.
Successes. We're now required by Technical BC to obtain electrical operating permits for our lift stations. So we did identify that, and we obtained those permits, implemented the lift station electrical maintenance program, which identified and later rectified key issues at Machosen, Allendale, Portsmouth, and Ocean lift stations. Similar to the storm, this program goes hand in hand. It implemented the annual manual inspection program, which identified and led to the correction of 3 cross connections. Continued the pump replacement program, purchasing 2 new pumps, while rebuilding the old ones to be used as spares. We worked closely with the CRD to correct a grease and unflushable issue at the Sewell lift station. There was a severe spike in wipes coming from that neighborhood since COVID. And prior to this year, staff was utilizing contracted services, hydrovacs, to clean that station once a week. And with the help of the CRD, we did eliminate that problem to get down to cleaning that station now once every 8 weeks. So that was a significant time and cost saver. So that was a major success for us. And we upgraded the internet and added Wi-Fi to each pump station. Challenges and opportunities. We are currently and quite often reactively responding to emergency pump failures due to age. Often going extended periods of time with only one pump in a duplex system due to not having any spares, which falls in line with the pump replacement program. Keeping up the maintenance needs of Colwood's sanitary system, striving to implement the program listed in Appendix 2, working to become more proactive through the CCTV program, which will help with yearly flushing and cammering. Providing utility support with a lean crew where sanitary works often comes at the cost of other services. So we have to balance back and forth. If we have lean crew on the roadside, we often have to take staff from the utility side. So we have to find that balance, and often that can leave us shorthanded on the utility side and vice versa. And maintaining mechanical components to factory recommended standards. Reactive work is often the reality here, which is a challenge. Yep. 2023 priorities were to continue with the capital replacement plan for sewer pumps, codifying practice with the introduction of a pump station and linear infrastructure maintenance policy, which we completed. Completing up-to-date electrical inspections and implement policies, which we did this year, which sets up yearly electrical inspections, which then provides us with a maintenance plan and provides us updates on what repairs need to be done. And creating a sewer maintenance operations policy for both pump stations and linear infrastructure. Those are sort of all tied together. Lastly on the list was to create a capital installation plan for adding flow monitoring devices at each pump station location. Spent the first portion of the year looking at implementing these devices at stations, whether that was installs or retrofits of stations. Where we've landed near the end of the year, which ties into our 2024 priorities. We are now working with the CRD to establish flow monitoring data for all our pump stations. So that is a benefit to the city. That's a benefit to engineering, public works, and the CRD. So that is a group effort, which will give us the data that we're looking for, but that will end up being a significant cost savings for us to actually physically install these devices in the station. So that we'll monitor how that goes in 2024, but we're hoping that becomes a success. Another priority is to investigate a potential inflow and infiltration concern in the Wilford catchment. So we have flagged something near the Wilford pump station that we want to investigate, and creating a capital replacement plan for SCADA components. What we found through our electrical inspections this year, that much of our SCADA equipment that is installed in the kiosks is still has never been replaced. So some of it is upwards of 30 years old and well past its recommended serviceable life. So next year we'll be looking to set up a replacement plan for that and implement those strategies going forward to keep all that information and electrical infrastructure up to date and in good working order. So that's all I have. If there's any questions.
Any change in priorities anyone sees, or any additional priorities anyone wants to put on the list for 2024? Okay, seeing none, thank you very much. Jen.
So moving to the sewer utility operating budget, intention, legislated requirement to ensure that the utility is completely self-financed. So we are, the primary revenue source is that of our sewer utility fee, our sewer user fee. There's two factors I wanted to highlight with this budget. For those of you who were here for 2021 budget deliberations, you recalled a conversation where we were looking at how we could phase in the operating costs associated with the wastewater core area, wastewater treatment plant. And so our operating budget started that 5-year phase in 2021. The operating budgets continue to see that phase in, with the expectation, and the current plan does see us completely funding those costs through the city's sewer utility by 2026. So the implication of that is that every year we will see an increase in our sewer utility rates to support that. There will be nominal offset with new development that will generate revenue. We will, similar to this year, return with options for consideration with the utility rate increases. But I did want to highlight that that is the primary driver. When you look overall at the utility budget change over what was approved for last year for 2023, that almost 25% increase, the majority or 17% of that increase is related to this continued phase in to support those costs of the utility. In addition, you've heard from our team tonight about some of the reactive nature of the work that we're doing, and in particular, the maintenance of our sewer utility infrastructure. And this budget does propose that we increase resourcing both in 2024 and a further increase in 2025 to support additional personnel to support, so that we can move to a more proactive maintenance of the sewer utility infrastructure. Pleased to answer any questions you may have with respect to this operating budget.
On the floor. Don't see any questions. I think we're awestruck by it. Okay, thanks very much, Jen. And so the motion, proposed motion is that we maintain for 2024, the proposed service level sewer utility is to maintain motion. Okay. Councilor Day, seconder, Councilor Jensen, discussion. Seeing none, any opposed? Seeing none, unanimous. We shall maintain. We're coming down to the home stretch here.
Thank you,
Public
Your Worship.
Works.
It wasn't on the agenda that you approved earlier this evening that we do Public Works. Is council comfortable that we transition and do Public Works?
I think that if it means we don't have to be here tomorrow, I think it'd be pretty well unanimous, except I know Councilor Jensen wants to be here tomorrow. I'll move the okay, seconder. Okay, Councilor Olson, all in favor? It's unanimous. We shall do it tonight.
Thank you, Your Worship. In council expectations in Public Works, that's special city programs such as branch drop-off be efficient, effective, and relevant to public demand. That fleet vehicles be managed to demonstrate climate leadership, identifying and prioritizing zero-emission vehicle options. That customer service education and consistent messaging to residents continue to drive the response to service requests. That city facilities be maintained to reduce energy consumption and demonstrate climate leadership. That calls for service be prioritized over scheduled work when the issue represents a potential safety hazard. That Public Works continue to develop interdepartmental partnerships to improve staff coordination of services and improve knowledge of Colwood infrastructure. That staff are trained, educated, and knowledgeable. and we focus on the safety of the workforce.
Okay, any changes to council expectations? I do. I'm gonna try it again this year. Let's talk about branch drop off again. Because, you know, last year when we talked about this, I asked the question, you know, if when we doubled it, were we picking up, you know, was there more branches being dropped off? And the answer was no, it was the same amount. So, you know, I want an honest answer from staff on this. I mean, some weeks I come by here and it's really busy here, but, and I know the reason why we doubled it, you know, it was because the waiting, I guess. And I always said, well, if you schedule it different, I mean, it's pretty easy. I mean, that's what a lot of neighborhoods do. They say this Saturday's evens and then next Saturday's odds sort of thing. And, you know, you still get to do it, you know, whatever. So I'm just going to challenge it again. Because I'm just saying right now, I think it increased the budget by $70,000 last year. I think, was it Jen? I forget exactly. But just an honest opinion, I mean, are you guys busy every week, like, you know, collecting branches? Is it still that heavy? And I mean, I could be flipped again here, but I just want to understand that, you know, when we did it originally, yes, there was lineups apparently, but like I said, scheduling, we could have did it differently. And it's, I could certainly say, here's that money, you know, Public Works, go spend it someplace else, you know, that's, you can help your own efficiency. I'm not saying I'm trying to cut the money. I'm just trying to say, can we spend it more effectively someplace else? I guess is my bottom line. So I was wondering if I can get an honest opinion, please.
Through the chair. Thank you so much for that. In terms of branch drop off, our largest cost is getting rid of the material. That's, I would say, arguably probably 60 to 70% of the cost associated with the program. So we don't see a major shift depending on the frequency of the events. We've improved our efficiency in the sense that weekend work is now 7 days. We have a 7-day operation with the parks crew that helps us out through branch drop off. So we're not incurring a lot of overtime to support branch drop off. That being said, we can certainly look at efficiencies. We do know when it's busiest, but communication has always been difficult to get that consistent messaging to residents because it varies how often they come in. So it's something we can work towards, but certainly the largest cost is that removal.
Okay, so we're doing it every week when we used to do it every other week, correct? I believe that's how the system we went to. Is that correct?
Yeah, 9 months of the year we do it weekly, and then we go first and third Saturday for the other 3 months through the winter time.
Okay, that's right. Okay, thank you. Anyways, I just thought I'd bring it up again. I'll continue over the next 3 years, but sorry, Councillor Jordison.
Sorry, so from what I understand, I don't use the service, or I haven't used it, so it's every Saturday. Every Saturday for those 9 months, and then it's the first and third. So, okay. I guess my only concern is, well, I would prefer it just to be the first and the third every month, but everybody loves their branch drop off. So do we have to have it open on statutory holiday weekends when it's costing us more for staff to be here?
We could certainly look at reducing those. I mean, we generally see a lower turnout for those days anyways. So we could look at, usually it's 1 or 2 a year that end up on a stat holiday. So we could certainly take a look at that.
Yeah, you will have to. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, you're still on.
So I mean, I might just want to make that as a motion. I think it happened this past year. I could be wrong, but just that if a stat falls on a, you know, on a weekend or whatever, just that we're closed. It won't be worded that way. Sorry. Just that, yeah, that we would branch drop off would not take place on a long weekend. Maybe that's not even right, is it? Long weekend? Yeah.
Yeah, the holiday weekend, so that's maybe 1, 2, 3 of them,
Yeah,
3 or 4 of them.
something to that.
May dates, yeah, four times a year, I guess. Okay, someone want to second that? Okay, Counselor Day. And, well, I'm sorry, I didn't see all the hands pop up here, before I let you make the motion. So we got a motion on the floor. I'm gonna open it for discussion on that, and I'll let you extend yourself. It's because we jumped the gun here. Counselor Jensen, please.
Yeah, thank you, your worship. This is a flagship service for the community. We hear regularly how much it's appreciated. And I would argue that a long weekend is when people are outside pulling shrubs or trimming trees. So I don't think it's too much to ask. Now, just a point of clarity, please, John. Our staff are here anyways, right? We don't bring in additional staff. Like those staff that are working out back are also doing other duties. So if we're closed, is that a reduction in staff, or are we still having the same number of staff coming in anyways because of all the other things?
We would reduce by 1 staff member for that day, just because we have to have someone dedicated as an attendant.
Gotcha. So I think that's a nominal savings for a couple of days out of the year. I think I'll oppose it. Thank you.
Counselor Day.
Thank you. I seconded the motion because I just think it's a good idea. I think that it's not a huge money saving, and I don't want to waste a lot of time on it, but I think staff could use the day off anyways. If it's a long weekend, take your time. I think that if we're at home and we're working on our yards, we can bring it in next week.
Counselor Grove, thank you very much.
Thank you. My neighbors are all lined up on those holiday weekends with their trailers full of scrub. And some people have new greenhouses that maybe they should utilize a little bit more on those weekends. Sorry, that's a jab. Councillor Jordanson got a new greenhouse this year. I just think it's a busy weekend, and the consistency of it. I can envision 40 cars lined up wondering why you're not open on that day, because the message you can't get through explaining which days are busier or not is the same message you're going to try to pass, that you're closed this 1 or maybe 2 days a year. So I just oppose it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Counselor Ward.
I'm going to side with Councillor Grove on that one. When you look at the number of stat days, really there's 3 in summer. You got Canada Day, you got BC Day, and maybe Labor Day. I'm all for cost savings. I think if there is a wholesale reduction, 50% reduction in a program or something, I'm definitely would get behind it. I think, frankly, we need to find some cuts over the next 2-3 weeks here. I'll be very clear about that. I'm not one that wants to see continued kind of expenditures where they are. I think we have to tighten our belts a bit. But on this one, I just don't see the savings, and I think the downside is greater than the savings on this one. I'm not a big user of it. I live in a townhome, but the few times I've gone, it's busy every time, and it's almost a social event for some folks, as Councillor Grove alluded to. And I believe that there's a cynicism in the public anyway about what they get for their tax dollar. And this is one of those few visible, tangible things that they can say, this is what I get that people in Langford don't get, or people in View Royal don't get. And I say we underestimate that at our peril, to be honest with you. That's my take on it.
Good, thank you. Doug will be Doug, because I still look at data, and when the data says to me that when we had half the frequency, we did the same tonnage. So what does that say to you? So I'm sorry, I'm that way, and I won't go for this particular motion because it's peanuts in the big picture. Not unless staff said we want our 3-day weekend, I'd be all supportive, but it just seems like peanuts right now, and we won't see the savings that we need to see. So, but I'm going to keep asking the question every year. Because I am like council ward. I just foresee some tough times coming ahead. So we've got to have those things that what we can cut without actually, you're cutting, a little service, but we're still delivering. We're getting rid of the junk in their backyards with half the frequency, and it's quite substantial dollars. So anyways, I will call the question at this point. Oops, Councillor Grove again. You wanted me to stay here all night.
Thank you. I'd like to say simply that it's not about tonnage, but the length of the lineup each Saturday that was open. And that the price per tonnage collected may be also added along with some kind of a health benefit calculation and worth that we could add to this whole discussion. I think branch drop off is a great thing. So anyway, thank you. And not that the tonnage thing had anything to do with the emotion in front of us.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor of the motion. Okay, Councillor Day, Councillor Jordison, and those against, that's the rest of us. Okay, we shall move on. Thank you for indulging us.
Thank you, Your Worship. Statistics page.
Same.
Seeing none, we'll move.
Right, thank you.
For the mayor, we had a number of successes this year. One of the big ones for our team was the VMC 1200, the truck that we were able to successfully implement this year. It's been an incredible success for our team, just to not only embrace electrification, but to also use electrification in a different way too. We're not just transporting people, we're using it to deliver a service, that being snow and ice. So today we concluded the installation of a brine tank on this truck. So that's been a major success for us to be able to implement that through this winter. And we're also looking to continue developing snow and ice capability with that as well. Now, also our EV related charging infrastructure. So we've increased our capacity so that we can charge over 10 vehicles now. So we've added 5 new stations that are shared between 2 stalls each. So as we get more and more electric vehicles, we'll be able to support those and deliver services effectively. In addition to that, Goldfinch has been a major project for our staff this year, taking that building and helping to revitalize it so that it can be used as part of a community arts organization. So I think that's been a major one for our team specifically to see that facility, which is such a remarkable facility, grow and be repurposed. Challenges though we experience our supply chain, the typical cost inflationary things that we're seeing, especially tied to fleet and facilities. We have vehicles that we need to keep going, and as a result, parts are costing us more. Day-to-day supplies are costing us more. So we're doing our best to work wherever we can with belt tightening, but to just realize those costs as best we can. In terms of vehicle procurement, we're seeing things speed up a little bit, but there are also vehicles that have been waiting on for delivery. So where those timelines are still affecting us, that's something we're working to try and get ahead. So we're procuring 2 or 3 years in advance so that we know that 2 years down the road, we will have what we need. In addition to that, pressures on facility maintenance, whether it's city hall maintenance, that sort of thing. We've had to repair our perimeter drains this year, HVAC maintenance, and that sort of thing. So definitely looking at how we can best serve the facility and plan for those. And you'll see that reflected in our priorities. So for 2023, creating a comprehensive plan for fleet electrification. You'll see that under Appendix 2. So we basically looked at our fleet and saw how can we get to 100% EV? What's that earliest date and how can we get there? So 2034 is what we look at as the 100% EV fleet for Colwood, providing that technological growth keeps up pace. And so in order to do that, we've looked at extending the life of some of our internal combustion vehicles, accelerating some electric vehicles wherever possible. But you'll see in the next year's budget, we have some requests for refurbishment to try and accelerate these assets, to try and lengthen the life of these assets and make sure that we're using them appropriately and we're not incurring additional embedded greenhouse gas costs by replacing something prematurely. Implementing fleet telematics. It's another thing that we're wrapping up this week as well. We're doing the install today and tomorrow. And then after that, we're moving on to the mapping component. So that'll pay huge dividends for us for next year. We'll be looking at snow and ice route progression, tracking exactly how much salt we put out, where we put it out. So it'll be incredible data for that reason. And then also our 2023 priorities, expanding zero emissions priority purchasing for small equipment. We've outfitted the parks team. We've been working closely with them, and now next year, all of their trimmers are going to be zero emissions, battery powered. Same with leaf blowers. We're working on that. And with the help of Gord, we've tracked down a really good zero emissions mower that we're going to put into play as well. So the kind of lingering priority from 2023 is that policy creation for sidewalks and snow and ice. We're working through most of that, but we're just kind of fine tuning that as we go across our service areas. Now for 2024, building on the comprehensive fleet plan for electrification, we're looking to establish an electrification plan. And that essentially takes that kind of roadmap that we have now and then spells that out in terms of capital cost. So we can plan accordingly and look at how we're setting aside money so that we can accurately forecast to replace that fleet as we move towards 2024. Another one for us is to draft comprehensive facility improvements capital plan, looking at City Hall to see where can we make an improvement, where can we increase efficiency in the building, but where can we also plan for the future too in terms of capacity. And then finally, identifying contracted services. So within our LG CAP program, one of the big components, not just our internal fleet, is also the GHGs that are generated by contractors. We want to look at those and see how can we drive that down? How can we, through procurement processes, through changes in our approach or policy, how can we reduce our greenhouse gases in that way? And then in addition to that, we want to continue implementing zero emissions priority purchasing with the roads and utilities team, working with Tanner to introduce plate compactors. And then we continue along with those policy creation for sidewalks, snow and ice, that sort of thing, bringing those into line and standardizing them across the public works service areas. Thank you.
Open the floor, Councilor Ward, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Oops. Thank you for that. I might be jumping forward a little bit into the budget piece here, but I'm looking, you know, we're talking a lot about the electrification of, vehicle fleet and GHG emissions and saving maybe, but I'm trying to find where we're sort of looking at the before and after. I mean, I see a fleet and equipment maintenance budget line, but I'm struggling to see, okay, is there cost savings? So capital expenditure of a, EV dump truck, obviously more than a gasoline dump truck, but over the course of the last year, how much was saved through that? Like, I'm looking for maybe measurements beyond the green side of it, but from an actual operating cost standpoint, like how much money are we saving by moving to it? And I'm not saying I wouldn't move towards climate friendly fleets and things regardless. There could be more of a cost, and at the end of the day, it's you weigh that out in different terms. But I'm just curious why we don't see operating costs of vehicles and equipment, just sort of maintenance in there. I don't know, maybe Jen, that's a question for you. I'm not sure.
Thank you, through the mayor. I think what might be helpful to aid that understanding is if we return with further detail in terms of this is the overall fleet and equipment budget, regardless of the service area, and then show it by type of expenditure. So you can see that trend with the fuel budget over the next few years, as well as the trend for the repair and maintenance, because we are experiencing some cost escalation, which is mitigating where we do anticipate some savings. So we can certainly endeavor to bring that forward, because it's very difficult, virtually impossible to get that appreciation with how the budgets are currently presented.
Okay. Councilor Jensen.
Thank you, Worship. I love all this, John, but I'm going to register a couple of small concerns. One, along the same lines of Councillor Ward. I mean, I'm sorry, but a basic F-150 capital cost to acquire it versus for instance, the new Lightning that's coming out are dramatically different. And I would suggest you can operate a basic Ford 150 for several years based on that capital cost. So, I mean, I know we're not there yet and we're moving in this direction. So I'm going to be watching that. I understand that we have other goals that we're trying to achieve as well. And I appreciate that. But I dare say, you know, if we did it incrementally over time, that's great. And I'm looking at your entire electrified fleet in, you know, a few short years. The other primary concern, which I've registered in the past, is if we have a significant power outage and we got one genset running back 40 here, that's a lot of electric vehicles lined up, you know, for some power on a daily basis, as opposed to, you know, hand bombing some diesel into a truck if you have to. So I have a concern by completely changing our fleet over, because I don't think we have enough experience in this electric market yet to say, yes, we're completely capable of removing snow with a plow on a you know, one of your fancy electric vehicles. But I mean, I think other jurisdictions are having some problems with electric fleets. I've heard the city of Calgary bought a bunch of electric buses that are now white elephants because the company disappeared and they have no heaters in them. So apparently they've designed a diesel heater to heat the bus. So, I mean, I'm just not sure that we're there yet. And I'm hoping that we do this incrementally, slowly over time, and that we use the experiences of other people in colder climates, perhaps, to make sure that we're testing our theory that this is the right direction to move in. Absent our climate goals, I'm talking strictly from a fleet point of view and a safety point of view. I'd hate to see that we can't respond to a public works necessity in time of crisis because the small little truck is out back there charging. Some of that is glib. I appreciate that, but do you see where I'm going with this? And can you speak to some of that, John?
Well, through the chair. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And part of the reason why we're calling this a fleet electrification plan, we're looking at this through a holistic lens. And the reason, you know, we're not trying to switch everything over overnight is because we want to approach it cautiously, but we want to do it in a way that makes sense. So a lot of the bigger ticket items, our heavy equipment, our trucks, we're going to continue using those because they have low kilometers as they are. We're going to refurbish them as needed. But the idea here is that we're going to make sure we do this in a kind of a progressive way. So primarily right now, we're targeting cars, pickup trucks, things that wouldn't see use during a typical snow or ice event. While we're trying to build a little bit of snow and ice capacity just to try that out, we're not necessarily dependent on that. So we still have a lot of capacity in the other way.
Good, thank you. Councillor Day.
Thank you. The prior issue reminds me, I think we probably need a solar array, but because there's a lot of huge benefits. I haven't got one yet, but a lot of other family members have electric vehicles, and they're realizing some real savings from not having to go gas up every couple weeks. Which for me is $100 every couple weeks, so it adds up. But my issue is around the proposed service level to be increased for the holiday light beautification throughout the city of $35,000. And as much as I love our holiday celebrations and the things that we do, I think that increase is something that I'm not prepared to add to the budget on a permanent basis at this time, because we probably have some chickens coming home to roost soon, and so I think that I would like to see us maintain.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and Councillor Day's comments kind of led to or segue into what I was going to talk about. And what I was speaking about initially, I guess where I was going with an understanding of cost savings on EVs already implemented and things is, why do we need to permanently add 35K and and increase the service level if in theory we found some cost savings through this migration, you know, in other areas. I guess my question for staff, you know, and potentially, well, anybody who's willing to answer is, can we find room for 35,000 and maintain the existing service level? I mean, if it's an increase, I can't support it. But I just think, okay, if these initiatives are actually a cost saving measure and not just you know, an ideological thing, then surely we can find some room.
Through the chair, thank you for that, and I appreciate that we talk about in the long run saving money with transitioning to electric vehicles. At the moment, because we're in the early stages of this, we're not seeing those. We're seeing climate benefits, but we're not seeing a significant savings at the moment. So fleet maintenance is still not saving us any money. It's still expensive, and inflation is pushing it upwards. In terms of supporting this event, while we do maintain a current budget for holiday light up, we're looking to basically kind of amalgamate some of the services across with communications and other areas, and realize an improved level of service that is in keeping with what the community has kind of requested over the years in terms of additional lighting and events. So this is something that we're bringing forward because it's something we've seen as a kind of a request.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to bring up this issue right now because it's something that's always bothered me since I've been on council here, and that is the I don't know if this is under your bailiwick here, JR, but from what I understand now, there's software that we can, you know, the electric chargers out front right now. It's not that we're going to be rolling in revenue here from it, but it's the principle, right? That part of the population gets free energy and the other part doesn't, and then they can argue about all kinds of things. But you know, the fact is that I've noticed that almost every municipality is now going to a fee service. Now everybody's charging for it, and I think this is the only ones we don't charge for. Is that correct?
We do have 6 EV chargers throughout the city, and they are all currently no charge models. It's something that we're going to move towards. We're certainly seeing a lot of cost pressures on hydro, and so we're looking to alleviate those costs wherever possible. So we're hoping to bring a report to council on exactly how to proceed on that, but any direction through service route would be greatly appreciated.
I'd like to see that on the priorities actually, because you know, that's reality. And I don't know if you know, the rest of council will disagree or agree, but I'm going to make that motion that we go to that to charging, you know, for those services. So that's my motion. Okay. Councilor Jordison, and I'm opening it up for discussion. Councilor Day.
Thank you. Probably your worst nightmare, but I think that along with charging for them, we should consider upgrading the service to like a fast charger, because then we could get a lot more people through the same spot in a short amount of time, getting what they need. Anecdotally, people that in my family who have purchased an electric car are seeing maybe $50 a month on their bill for charging their vehicle. So I don't think it's and everything that I heard up until now was that the cost recovery for electric chargers was small enough that it was similar to charging. It was easier to charge for the parking space than it was to charge for the actual amount of electricity that's used. So just if we're going to charge for it, there's already the capacity to do that by moving to a fast charger, in which case we would serve a greater population, since there is a lot more EV vehicles on the roads now than there was when we first put those chargers in, probably more than 10 years ago now. And so if we're going to charge for them, I think we should consider that as an option.
Councilor Ward.
Maybe just a counterpoint to that, Councilor Dave. From what I see, the chargers are located in areas where people kind of park and leave them for the day, like at the park and ride. I may not be familiar with all the locations, but I notice many a council meeting, there's a regular user out here who parks her car, husband picks her up, they leave the car there for the night, and then in the morning when they commute to work, they come and pick it up again. So while I understand what you're saying, it makes sense. I kind of question if it's a user at the park and ride, if they're just going there in the morning, plugging in, taking a bus to work downtown, you know, back there by 5:30 PM again. So in those particular instances, I couldn't see investing any additional funding in them because it's going to be one user, kind of like an airport model where it just sits occupied, you know, for an extended period.
Okay, thanks very much. Oh, what? Counselor Day, yes.
I'm so sorry. I don't mean to monopolize, but where the fast chargers are, you're not allowed to park there forever. Like that's the rule. You have to swipe with your credit card. You get as much time as you get. You got to come back. There's apps that are involved. They have them at the Sawasan malls that are when you come off the ferry in Vancouver. There's a whole bunch of fast charger spots there, that the whole purpose of it being a fast charger is that they're in, they're out, they're gone. The people who may be leaving a vehicle here for an extended period of time are probably doing so because it's not convenient to wait until it's charged, because these do take longer. Whereas with a fast charger, you could get a usable charge in, you know, less than an hour.
Counselor Grove.
Whether DCFC or level 2, there's idle time fees available to add to your software. So once you're finished charging, you start paying $1 a minute. They move pretty quick.
Okay, so that your suggestion right now, Counselor Day, you can make a motion to amend my motion if you wish.
I think there's a report for you. So.
Okay, yeah, because I want to understand the costs anyways of doing that, right? Okay, so there is a motion on the floor, and that was basically that we as a priority, we look at charging for the energy consumption at all our electric charging stations. So, and seconded, and I'm going to call the question. All those in favor of the motion? That's unanimous. That's going to make a few people happy, I can tell you that. Yeah. Hey, we got a unanimous tonight. Okay, we'll move onwards, please. It's budget, actually. We started pecking our way at that already, Jen, but go ahead, please.
No, I appreciate it. It's some great conversation to introduce this budget. So the team has been in discussions regarding electric vehicle charging. And as you've just heard from our deputy director, we will be returning with options for consideration and look to integrate possible revenue source to support the costs that are involved. As well with this budget, you've heard about the fleet telematics that we have just recently introduced, and there will be ongoing costs to support access to that data and collection of that data. And so the operating budget has been updated to reflect those financial implications. One topic that really resonated during last year's service review was that of somewhat disaggregated financial implications of arts and in particular city events, service delivery across multiple service areas. So we have consolidated our budgets with respect to city events, with respect to seasonal lighting, and that will be coming forward at a future service review. So the reference that you heard with respect to consideration of an additional $35,000 a year to support enhanced seasonal lighting, there'll be further background and context with the events, arts and culture service area, which is a newly defined area for this city. And as you did hear, that is an enhancement that this community has enjoyed for the last about 2 years, I believe, by way of a special initiative budget. And so we are now bringing forward options to consider sustainable funding. So I did want to mention that, but that is not incorporated into this budget. Pleased to answer any questions you may have. Oh, and I did want to highlight in terms of, there was some discussion regarding the branch drop-off budget. The mayor's correct. In 2021, we enhanced that program. We enhanced the number of events, and we did offset the financial implications with the COVID Safe Restart Grant. And so there were some property tax implications moving into 2022. This draft budget is consistent with what was approved for 2023 and what was approved for 2022, as you heard described earlier this evening. Pleased to answer any questions you may have with respect to this service area.
Thank you. I'll open the floor questions. Councillor Day, please.
So with the fleet telematics that's related to our greenhouse gas reporting, I'm just wondering, is there any cost savings to us for implementing that?
In the long run, yes, there will be. It helps us manage, prevent idling, things like that, optimize routes. Initially, no, there is an outlay for equipment and also ongoing costs to support the data plan associated with the vehicles.
Thank you. Just I guess I'm trying to figure out, I think what I've heard is that the $35,000 that's in the budget is not to buy lights to put up. It's to allow Public Works to support events where the lights are being used.
Through the chair, great question. It's a bit of both, but it is primarily to support contracted services of enhanced seasonal lighting. So some of the seasonal lighting that we've seen throughout city parks in recent years. So it's not directly the Public Works team. But we will have further detail when that operating budget comes forward, which is with the events, arts, and culture.
Okay, so I guess my question is, because it's included in this budget and the motion that you're looking for is to increase the service levels, I don't feel prepared to make that decision to increase the service levels because I don't know anything about really what the implications are of saying that.
Through the chair, if I may, I would suggest not considering the increase to support enhanced seasonal lighting, as that will be further discussed and considered in a separate service profile that was originally scheduled for tomorrow evening, but has been deferred until the team is available. The confusion is this is the first year that we have brought forward this consolidated events, arts, and culture seasonal service area. So previously, this activity was within this defined area, which is in part why we have made mention of it. But I would suggest when you see the consolidation of the city's events, arts, financial implications in that operating budget, I would suggest that's a more appropriate time to consider whether or not to increase that service delivery.
Great, thank you.
Okay, open up for a motion then. Councillor Jensen.
Thank you. Based upon the discussion, I'm going to put forward that the service level be maintained.
And the branch drop off maintained, correct? So they're looking for two.
Maintain and maintain. Sorry, a double header, yes.
Can I get a seconder, please? Okay, Councillor Olson. Open it up for discussion one last time here. Councillor Day.
Thank you. I just want to be clear that the motion that's there is incorrect. So we're saying that the Public Works levels be maintained.
Yes.
And I'm fine with that.
Okay, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor, please. And that's unanimous. Motion passes. And I think that's it for tonight. If you need a motion for adjournment. Okay, there we go. There's so many. Just pick two.
And with that,
thank you.
we will return on Monday at 2:30 p.m.
Oh,
We will not return tomorrow.
It was worth it. It was worth going to 10. Wasn't it?
Oh.